Daily Wire. Who saw that coming? About everybody. Let's talk about it, y'all. Middle America.
And you ain't black.
I don't know what I said.
The first time ever any...
What are you people?
We're Americans. We are Americans indeed. My name is Vincent, and this is Middle America with Vin and Story, where we're not left wing, we're not right wing, we're just right. You guys get a 2-for-1 today because I told you guys in the first episode that we were going to be covering the Candace Owens departure, and I kind of lied to you because there was a family event going on, and I had to cut the video short. But I have since returned, and we're going to be looking at, yes, dear listener, the very fascinating discussion, I must say, that ensued at the Daily Wire in response to, you can call it a termination, you can call it a, a firing, a mutual parting ways, whatever you want to call it, but Miss Candace Owens is no longer with the Daily Wire. Now, we covered this on Middle America. We covered the interview with Rabbi Barkley, in which he was brought on to explain why he wrote an article which has since been deleted by the outlet he wrote it for, where he said Candace Owens is a Jew-hating bigot. And then he came on to her show, and she actually let him speak his mind. And we were told in that show that if you believe there's an equivalency between the suffering of the Palestinians and the suffering of Jewish people on 10/7, you were anti-Semitic. Miss Candace Owens called the folks in Hamas, she called them terrorists. She said, obviously, everybody condemns terrorism. Mr. Barkley, in the article he wrote, said that she refused to condemn terrorism. And when she played the clip of her saying, obviously, everybody condemns terrorism, he said that statement was negated by the fact that she said there was a moral equivalence between the Israeli dead and the Palestinian dead. Of course, a person could argue that there is no moral equivalence because the Israelis have weapons and things that the other group doesn't. But that's neither here nor there. Jeremy Kershaw says Cole's Notes version is her boss was an Orthodox Jew and she was being what is described as anti-Semitic. What is described as anti-Semitic. What's fascinating to me about that charge, Jeremy, especially considering the folks in the Daily Wire, was that their entire shtick was facts don't care about your feelings. Their entire shtick was we can make fun of trans people. We can talk about trans people without being transphobic. We can talk about the LGBT people without being homophobic. We can talk about blacks without being racist. We can talk about illegal immigration without being xenophobic. That was the entire shtick of the Daily Wire. And then when it was Israelis, you can't talk about Israelis in a critical way without being anti-Semitic. So that would help in the notes relative to how we perceive situations. So we went and we did an entire breakdown of that entire discussion. You can see that on the Vin and Story channel. This will also function as an Ask Me Anything, by the way. What's up, Jet? Good to see you. Thank you for hooking us up on X, by the way. By the way, if you see us on X and you retweet us, we're going to put everybody who retweets in a week, any of our shows, we're going to put them in a mailbag and somebody's going to win a free song or a hoodie or something. So be checking out for that. Okay. So after Candace committed the horrible sin of speaking against the genocide that's... Oh, by the way, she asked him about the genocide that was going on in Palestine. He said he doesn't use that word. So that's how he was like, why are you asking me about a word that I don't use? Which obviously Come on. Now there are two people that did it. They did it. You and Kai. All right. So here we go. Here is now Andrew Clavin is apparently a Messianic Jew. A Messianic Jew is a Jewish person who believes that Jesus is the Messiah. Remember, Ben Shapiro is an Orthodox Jew, and they believe that Jesus is not the Messiah. They believe that Jesus was an imposter, a liar, mistaken, whatever. But they do not believe that he is the Messiah. Okay, so that's obviously one of the major breaks between Christianity and Judaism. So let's see what Mr. Clavin had to say about his teammate and fellow Christian Anna Kasparian. Candace Owens being booted from the program. Let's see.
Easy stuff about going DEFCON on the Jews. Fine. She has a mentally ill friend.
Okay, we're talking about Kanye West. Kanye West talked about going DEFCON 3 on Jews. All of our black compatriots dutifully with hat in hand went in front of the cameras and made sure that that everybody understood that Kanye was speaking for himself, and the black community completely shifted off of him. You should have seen what middle America was looking like when Kanye made his statement. He had a whole bunch of people trying to get me to disown my brother. But I would do no such thing. I would do no such thing. And the reason, dear listener, I did no such thing was because if you are familiar with hip hop and rap music, this has been a constant complaint from every major artist. Jay-Z, B.I.G., old school, new school, however you want to talk about. Okay? So that's the reason why I never repudiated Kanye. And I have to say, my opinion on Candace Owens began to change. Because let's make no mistake about it. This is the same woman that gave, racists all they needed during the George Floyd uprising when she completely lambasted dude and basically spit on his dead cadaver for all to see. And she was a black voice doing it. And so all the racists were able to get away with it. I think that was her most retweeted. She got 1 million retweets from them folks. And this is what I say to folks, man. Now, Kanye might be off of your team, but he's not off of my team. I'm never going to disown any of my folks, ever. So he might be off your team, and that's okay. Everybody's got their own separate convictions. But me personally, I actually admire people that rally around their folks and support their folks no matter what. You don't see how these folks show up advocating for Israel, making apologies. I'm talking about defenses, like psychological defenses of the genocide that's happening. Left wing or right wing, you notice these guys got the same script. Whether it's Ben Glebe, he's supposed to be a leftist on Young Turks, or Dave Rubin, who's supposed to be on the right. They all have the same script relative to Israel. I think that's instructive. That's what I think. I think that's very, 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 very instructive. Okay. So here we go. So he's mad at her for not, genuflecting to white America and disowning Kanye West. She refused to do so, and apparently he among other folks of his persuasion had a problem with that. We continue.
She stood by him,
Yep.
Fine. It was a little uncomfortable, but still, so what?
You know what makes me uncomfortable is when a rabbi makes sex toys with his daughter. That makes me uncomfortable because it makes me uncomfortable because to me, that's one step toward normalizing something that we should have an infinite permanent barrier. There should be a barrier psychologically, and those two should never mix. So that makes me kind of icky.
She attacked this guy, Rabbi Shmuley. I will tell you, with all honesty, I don't even know who Rabbi Shmuley is.
She did not attack Rabbi Shmuley. Rabbi Shmuley and his daughter shot a video about 2 years ago where they explicitly stated, "We are coming for you." And it was because of her support of Kanye West. Yes, Papa Emeritus IV with his daughter. This man is selling sex toys and doing sex podcasts with his daughter. That is correct. Don't be a prude, though. We continue.
I'll tell you, with all honesty, I don't even know who Rabbi Shmuley is. I have no idea. I didn't look him up. I haven't seen anything from him.
This is the same thing that happened with Barkley. I don't really know what's going on. I'm just commenting. Well, if you don't know who he is and what he did, why are you commenting about it? Especially now that she's gone. Now she's fired. There was a whole jihad brewing for since October, November with Mr. Shapiro and Miss Owens. So why are you just now talking about, well, I don't know who Rabbi Shmuley is? Strange. We continue.
You know, she's complaining about him. Fine. You don't like a rabbi? You're allowed not to like.
See, you see how this is framed? This man and his daughter attacked her without provocation for 2 years consistently. Now, prior to her being terminated, he had a Twitter account. I'm sure he saw, because Candace, his co-worker, and she's got like 2 million followers. I'm sure he saw, but now we're going to play stupid and not know who Shmuley Boteach is. Shmuley Boteach, who even I knew about. This guy's a Messianic Jew. He's saying he had no idea who Shmuley Boteach was. All right.
Not to like Ben. You're allowed not to like anybody you don't like. If you can spell it out for me.
Is she allowed to defend herself?
The problem is. But when you start saying things like some of those books Hitler burned weren't so bad, you know,
Here's Jeremy Kershaw. I don't pay attention to her or Ben Shapiro, but I did see a few social media posts where she was being critical of Israel, kind of biting the hand that feeds you. Exactly. That's exactly what she was doing, because that demonstrates that she has a value system that's more important to her than money. And I think what happened with her is this happened while she was pregnant and in the last trimester and about to give birth. And that is a life-changing event in any woman. And it also brings women into the sorority of motherhood. And I'm sorry, until you have engaged in that rite of passage, you cannot know, none of us can, what happens in the mind of a woman when they cross over and join that sorority. So I am certain that this woman, because she has basic human decency and empathy, I could see her saying, wait a second, we got Palestinian mothers delivering on destroyed and decimated buildings with no water and supplies because the Israelis are not allowing them to do so. I think that at times people need to make decisions that are not decisions that are going to benefit their wallet before anybody else. Believe me, anybody that's been in this particular game, the YouTube game, everybody knows how to generate followers and what to avoid and what not to avoid, which subjects to avoid, which not to avoid, and which subjects to take what side on. That's a different discussion. We continue.
I was shocked. This is something Candace actually said. I was surprised to learn that the books Hitler was burning or the Nazis were burning, they weren't good books. They were bad books. They were socialist books. So you know, that's true. Burning the book is the act of a savage, first of all. And when you
burning a book is the act of a savage. Okay. Burning a book is the act of a savage. Okay. Now, remember, dear listener, I did not say this. Okay? I did not say this. He said it. Okay? He said one of the ways that you know, one of the ways that you can tell what a savage is them burning books. Okay? That's what they said. All right. Okay, let's see. Oh, and remember, this guy is claiming Christianity. Subhanallah. All right, guys, here we go. Our friend just said burning books is the act of a savage. All right, here we go. Let me look at it again. Let me look at it again.
That's true. Burning the book is the act of a savage. First.
Okay, burning a book is the act of a savage. All right. Okay, so says my Messianic Jewish friend who believes in Jesus and believes in New Testament is inspired scripture, right? Don't you believe that? I think he would say that, right? I think he would say that, yeah, I mean, I'm a Christian, and if you're a Christian, you're going to believe that the New Testament is inspired scripture. So having said this, I'm going to go and look here what our Bible says, because we're Christians and we're just going to go with the Bible. Okay, here's Acts chapter 19. Paul just cast out a demon from a person, okay? And let's see what happened. When this became known to the Jews and Greeks living in Ephesus, they were all seized with the fear, and the name of the Lord Jesus was held in high honor. High honor, the name of the Lord Jesus, to Jews and Greeks in that station, by the way. Many of those who believed now came and openly confessed what they had done. A number who had practiced sorcery brought their scrolls together and burned them publicly. When they calculated the value of the scrolls, the total came to 50,000 drachmas. So this man just said that book burning is the action of a savage. And yet, in his Bible, in his New Testament, when Jews and Greeks in particular hear about what Jesus Christ has done and the name of Christ is held in honor, they burned $50,000 worth of books, Mr. Clavin. Maybe he forgot that passage. We continue.
And when you start with burning books, you start burning people. But they burned Joseph Conrad, one of my favorite writers, Kafka, Hemingway, Jack London, and yes, some socialists, some of whom were extremely talented and some of whom were extremely interesting, like Karl Marx is extremely interesting writer.
Karl Marx is extremely interesting now. Isn't that something? Don't you guys remember in 2020? Don't you guys remember in 2020? You guys remember 2020, don't you? Don't you guys remember all the cultural Marxism? Cultural Marxism. Y'all don't remember that? These guys are the main Marx is the second incarnation of Satan people. But now all of a sudden, so when Candace says they were burning Marxist books, that should have been a 5 mile an hour fastball right across the plate to satisfy these people. But now that we don't like Candace, because Candace has come out and said something critical of Israel, now we're going to act like, I mean, what's wrong with Marx? I mean, he's a pretty interesting guy. What's up with that? What's wrong with the book burning? Even though this company was advocating for the removal of books, multiple books, some of which I agree with, by the way. I don't want gay porn shown or any porn shown to any child. I mean, hell, if it was up to me, the whole entire enterprise would be illegal, honestly. So, like, this is absolutely crazy to me. Absolutely crazy to me. Aren't Muslims the most enraged when Quran is burned? It depends on the context. A lot of people don't understand this, but in Islamic theology, the best, most honorable way to rid yourself of a Quran is to burn it. As a matter of fact, during the Uthmanic Recension, he was the fourth Khalifa. You had Umar al-Khattab, Abu Bakr, actually the third Khalifa, my bad. You had Umar, Abu Bakr, and then you had Uthman. There was a giant recension of the Quran, and hundreds of Qurans were burned because they had to standardize them. So, no, Muslims don't automatically get triggered and freak out if you set fire to the Quran. Now, if you set a context where you're spitting on the Quran and you say F Muhammad and all the rest of it, of course they're gonna get angry. We continue. I'm super pro-capitalism and I've got Marx on my shelf right now. Don't be ignorant. I agree, DB. The only reason I started reading Marx was because we were having one of these free-flowing conversations and I said something about Marxism and they said, well, how many people is capitalism killed? And I said, come on, what are you talking about? They said, how much Marx have you actually read, Vin? I said, none. They said, how do you have all these opinions about the guy you never even read him? So DB is completely right. We have to read, for sure. We have to read and not be ignorant. But it's really interesting to me how all these people, none of these people believe that we have memories beyond 30 seconds. I remember you in 2020. Your company was a main company demonizing cultural Marxism, much less Marx himself. We continue. This is a big flip here. We continue.
With whom I deeply, deeply disagree, but I don't burn his books because I'm not a savage. When you start saying that,
he's not a savage like his Jewish and Greek early ancient Christians in Ephesus in Acts chapter 19.
And that's a dog whistle. I'm sorry. I know it's a leftist phrase. I know they use it,
Yes, it is a leftist phrase. This is unbelievable. Okay. So dog whistle is a term that was invented, really popularized during the Trump administration. And that was one of those things where it was like Trump was like subliminally communicating like Nazi ideas, and like only people on the know really knew what he was saying. So he'd be like, have a great day. But if you took like the first 4 letters and then like you multiplied them by 9, divided them by 6, and then reinserted them into a Phoenician alphabet, if you turn every number in an equidistant lettering sequencing of like 5, you would be able to see Hitler is awesome. Okay, that's what a dog whistle is. Okay, that's what happened. That's what they were saying was a dog whistle. So anytime Trump said anything that could marginally be somehow connected, I used to play this game. I used to say that all colors are racist. They'd say, how are all colors racist, Vin? And I'd say, well, pick a color. And they'd say, blue. And I'd say, blue is the color of the sky. The sky has clouds. The clouds are white. Everybody likes the clouds because they're white. And when the clouds get dark, it's a rainy day. Nobody likes that. This is racism. That is what a dog whistle was, dear listener. And the number one group of people that were mocking the idea, this is a way of accusing somebody of being a racist. And then when you say, where is the evidence of their racism? You can say, look, he said, have a great day. And don't you remember the formulation I just gave you with the Phoenician alphabet? In Ugaritic, that explains, don't you see it? It's a way of accusing Trump of being racist. It's a way of accusing Trump supporters of being racist without the pesky duty of having to provide evidence, because you can just say, it's in the dog whistle, man. A dog whistle is something that the dog can hear that you can't. That's the idea. Good God. So now he's about to say that she is using a dog whistle. So he's going backwards on Marxism, not so bad. Now he's employing dog whistling. Before, you guys were saying it was completely invalid. Now all of a sudden the concept of dog whistling is valid. SubhanAllah. This is unbelievable to me. Unbelievable.
Randomly with anything you say, I understand all of that. That's a dog whistle. With whom I deeply, deeply disagree, but I don't burn his books because I'm not a savage. When you start saying that, that's a dog whistle. I'm sorry. I know.
Well, when you call people who disagree with you savages, even though your scripture says that your supposed forefathers in faith did the exact same thing, I don't think that's a dog whistle. I think that's a ad hominem attack. That's what I think. And I think you're selling out Christ right now. That's what it looks like to me. And subhanAllah, this is Good Friday into Easter. And you out here betraying Christ.
It's a leftist phrase. I know they use it, randomly with anything you say. I understand all of that. Still,
all the real valid criticisms we had of the dog whistle stuff, we're now going to employ because somebody said something about Israel. Unbelievable.
The depredations of the Nazis against the Jews are one of the most well-documented, recorded atrocities in human history, because they're Germans. They're Germans. They keep records. They keep very good records. We know these things happen. They weren't burning books. They also hated Einstein because his science was Jewish science. They hated Mendelssohn, one of their great composers, because his music was Jewish.
This is unbelievable to me. She didn't say it. We don't need to know that the Nazis were bad. I don't need none of this. All I need to know is they had a group of people in their power that they abused horribly. And that shit is unforgivable, what they did to those people. They experimented on human beings as if they were animals. Hell no, you can't be forgiven for that shit. A lot of those people died in an unrepentant state, and I'm very glad about that. But nobody has to be told, Mr. Clavin, that the Nazis are bad. All she's saying is, ironically, the same shit you guys have been saying for years, only now you're acting, you want us to pretend that you guys weren't saying all that, laughing at all this shit 2, 3, 4 years ago, when it was black folks that were in the crosshairs.
Music, that's the way they thought. It's lunacy. It's lunacy to think that way. So when you start to say, well, some of those books they burned are bad books, I'm sorry. That's a dog whistle. When you retweet a post saying a Jew is drunk on Christian blood, which goes back, as I'm sure you know, to old blood libel that Jews eat Christian children, that's a dog whistle. When you start to refer in this kind of clever way to certain...
She did not retweet that. I don't know what you're talking about.
Group of people in Hollywood corrupting blacks and...
A certain group of people in Hollywood corrupting blacks. Dave Chappelle said, if it's a group of black guys, it's a gang. If it's a group of Italians, it's a mafia. If it's a group of Jews, don't say anything. This is ridiculous. As if Jews cannot organize and do bad things together. So we have entire shows called The Sopranos. We've got Peaky Blinders, which I think is talking about the Irish Mafia. We've got all these things baked into our subculture with Italians and the mafioso Italians and all the rest of it. But there can never be a Jewish mafia. No. They don't do that. They're just out there reading Torah and eating kosher, man. That's all those folks are doing. Corrupting blacks. I don't know, man. I don't know, Mr. Clavin. It doesn't seem to me that you're very familiar with our history, especially in the entertainment industry, relative to your folks. It seems to me that maybe you should do some reading. I think it'd be a good idea to do some reading. I'm tired of the whole concept of dog whistling. I know they can be real, but too often people use it as an excuse to accuse people of what they didn't say. That is correct. That's why it is an invalid critique, because it's unfalsifiable. It is a way of accusing someone of racism or whatever ism you want without having to provide any direct evidence. Nope. If you're black, Mick, you know this more than everybody. If you're black, you know good and well you've grown up hearing that shit your entire life, and you know when folks are doing it, and you know what you do. You just smile and keep going with your day, because we've already adapted how to deal with these people. This is just par for the course for black people. Them leftists made it a big deal because they needed a cudgel to go after Mr. Trump because they had nothing on him, as you can see. John Rogan says Vin equals incorrect. I might be right. Let's see. Let's see if Mr. Clavin demonstrates any familiarity with black culture relative to roving gangs of Jewish people and how they have treated us in the entertainment industry. Or maybe Ice Cube and Rakim and all those guys, Public Enemy. Maybe they're all just anti-Semitic and not uneducated. We need Clavin and Shapiro to help us. We continue.
Killing Michael Jackson, you're not allowed to then put on an innocent look and say, well, I'm just saying there's certain people, just a few, it's not, I'm just saying, you're messing with us. You're messing with us, and everyone knows it. And no one is fooled except those people who want to pretend to be fooled because they hate the Jews.
Hey, Vin, did you ever watch Munich? It's about, yeah. They went around killing all them folks. Yeah, the little phone and the cell phone, the bomb and the cell phone, all that good stuff. Yeah, I watch it. So this guy says you're messing with us. So he has completely, he's completely with, he's with them folks. He's identifying with them folks. He's not identifying as a Christian at all. Oh, man. Okay. The only reason we care a little bit about the people dog whistles because it's followed by a real action, not because it hurts us to not like it. Correct. When you hear the dog whistling shit happening at work, you're not getting that promotion or you're getting terminated. The only time we really care about that shit is when it actually affects our actual material well-being. Correct. We never went around and cried about that shit every 2 seconds. If we did, we'd never be able to work. We'd never be able to go to church. We'd never be able to shop, dear listener. Yeah. Miss me with the dog whistle stuff. Miss me with that. That's a way of accusing somebody of racism when you don't have the receipts. These people crying in this video can't name any of these rappers or anyone else is doing to them. Correct. Okay, so look, man. It is clear to me that, okay, Matt Walsh is a Roman Catholic. Michael Knowles is a Roman Catholic who's actually, Candace is about to convert to Catholicism, and I think Michael Knowles had a lot to do with that CCD and all the rest of it, if you know Catholicism and all that. None of them came out and defended her. Matt Walsh didn't even say a word. These dudes are cowards. Because if they agreed with Ben, you know that Knowles and the other guy, Walsh, you know Knowles and Walsh will be out there waxing poetic if they agreed with Shapiro. But they're dead silent on this issue. That tells me that they agree with Candace, because there's no middle ground on this particular one. They agree with Candace, but they're too cowardly to say anything. It's as Ian says, Knowles seems to be the least unhinged out of all of them. Correct. So look, when the German people were in a horrible situation and they were full of rage and they were legitimately, in my view, mad at the world, they then turned all that rage and anger to a small group of people in their populace who had no means of defending themselves. And Mr. Hitler used the communitas that comes in having a common enemy that you can defeat to get. It's kind of like you get a basketball player and he's going through a slump and you're the coach and you tell him that you create a bunch of easy plays for him to get his confidence up. Mr. Hitler was very, very brilliant at bringing German people together, and he used those people to do it. But in order to massacre a group of people like that on such a large scale, there has to be the dehumanization of the people that you're going after. There has to be the devaluing. There has to be some sort of way to say that we are somehow different than them. Unrelated, I checked the source of U.S. intel warning Russia. It was actually from the U.S. Embassy in Russia, who monitored reports that extremists have imminent plans to target large gatherings in Moscow, including concerts, and warn U.S. citizens to avoid such places. First, what U.S. citizens, no visa, have been approved since they placed diplomatic embargo. 2, embassy in Russia picked up intel and sent info to NSA. There is no way for Russian embassy to do that. They have no access nor personnel to do that. I'm going to go ahead and say that this individual knows what they're talking about. The idea that the NSA has this kind of relationship with Russia, particularly, remember, we had an American citizen who was contracted with the NSA. Me and Al actually disagree on this guy. I'm not even going to name him. But we had an American citizen who was contracting work for the NSA, who, when he fled to Russia. Okay? So, aside from the whole 2016 on whatever, there's always been at the intelligence level what they call quiet hostility between us and the... They changed the verbiage because you didn't want a cold and hot. You usually use cold and hot, but we wanted to avoid that because of the Cold War. But, yeah. I doubt that very highly. Oh my God, I had no idea that you and your wife were even familiar with Candace. I'm blessed to know how you both feel on this issue. Look, my problem my introduction to the term genocide and ethnic cleansing was hearing about the Holocaust. There were two very important moments in my life. One was when my mom sat me down and explained it to me, because they kept playing Anne Frank in some commercial, and my older brother kept reacting to it, and I was like, "Who's that girl?" So she finally explained it to me when I was a kid, came home from school. She cooked me my egg and she sat me down. She explained it to me. A couple years later, we ended up in a homeless shelter around Christmas time, and once you know it, we were staying in a synagogue. And in the synagogue, they let you walk around, and of course I ended up in the library. And in the library, they had all these things on the Holocaust. So then I saw the pictures. I saw pictures of hundreds and hundreds of people just lined up, emaciated, starved. Then I read the accounts of people saying goodbye to their sister and shit as they're getting marched off into the chamber. And I said, "Mom, how did they do this? With the people of Germany, how could you do that? I never had this whole Hitler killed 6. How did regular German citizens watch as their neighbors got carted off and didn't say anything? How?" That was the thing that always fucked me up about that. That's why I am the way I am with topics. When it comes to human life, I will lose friends, I will lose money, I will lose my life. Read through history. We always do this as a human family. And that's the reason why I never came on with this punch a Nazi thing. All of us are trying to pretend that Nazis are like some special, unique kind of evil. They are not. That is human nature. You want to know how we know? Because the sons and the daughters of the people that escaped the horrors of the Nazis are now replicating it in real time in color pictures now. Same people. The type of people who should know better are doing this shit now. And you got people who refuse to speak on it because they're worried about a check. And you claim you believe in God. You're going to see God one day, but you're not going to speak out because you're scared of what people are going to say to you on Facebook and Twitter. Listen. I promised myself something one day, and I can't tell you, I'm not going to get into the circumstances. But I remember saying, if I touch down and I can make it home safe, I'm going to fight for every living person I can till I die. And I'm going to find a way to show up to God and say, my zeitgeist, the time period that I was in, devalued babies. And I did something. I stood in the way. Devalued black people. I did something. I stood in the way. Devalued Palestinian children. I did something. I said something. Because I truly believe I'm going to see God. I truly believe I'm going to see the Lord Jesus. And his Jewish mother, by the way. I truly believe that. So hell no, I'm not going to get up in here and play a coward like this guy did. Whether or not it's secure for your job. I love Candace. She's speaking the truth. Girlfriend is speaking the truth. Yeah. I do think she's speaking the truth. And I think, I think she's going to be okay. You can't have pity for winners. And I'm not gonna pretend now that, I had a very important conversation with a friend of mine on the channel, one of my closest friends on the channel. He's like, yo, pump your brakes on this particular person. Like, they still got a ways to go. Relax. And that's an important conversation. So I'm not going to go all in on Candace and say she's the greatest thing since sliced bread. All I'm going to say is she has been consistent. She has been consistent. She has said, no, I'm not going to not talk about you because you're gay. No, I'm not going to not talk about you because you're trans. No, I'm not going to not talk about you because you're an Israeli. She's been consistent. The Daily Wire has been completely inconsistent. This dude just completely invalidated the last 4 or 5 years of Daily Wire's talking points in order to crucify his Christian sister. But it's very interesting because he's setting Candace up as the Christian dog whistle, and then he says, you're messing with us. But I thought our connection in Jesus was supposed to trump everything. There's no Jew or Greek, slave or free. So what us are you talking about, Mr. Clavin? Because I thought we were all supposed to be Christians. So what do you mean us? How are you us with Ben Shapiro when Ben Shapiro rejects Jesus as the Messiah? Says that Jesus lied and died for his own sins. How can you be an us with him and your sister's a they? Unless you don't know what it means to be a Christian. I don't know. The word on Twitter is being a Palestinian. Okay, all right, guys. So that's my take on the situation. Now, what I'm gonna say is, I'm gonna leave a clock up. I'm gonna put a clock up. Let's say 5 minutes, and I will talk about any topic you guys want me. Oh, I'll just say 10 minutes. Okay. Here's a clock. We got a 10-minute clock. I will talk about any and everything you want to talk about. If you have another subject that you guys want me to talk about, or I'll just peace out and go along my merry way, dear listener. Go along my merry way. Red heifer. Yeah, Mr. Zilla. Red heifer, blood moons, all that jazz. The reason they're putting TikTok through this ban is there's so much heavy documentation on what the Israelis are doing to the Palestinians in actual real time. Yeah. And it also, there's also TikTok videos. I just can't bring myself to show them because I'm not a big picture guy. When I was on the sidewalk doing sidewalk ministry abortion, I'm not a big picture guy. I would look at it periodically just to get myself into space and say, this is what you're fighting for. I'm not a big fan of putting that shit out there. I'm not a big fan of traumatizing people. But there are some horrible videos out there. Horrible videos out there. And part of me is like, I just don't understand us, man. I don't understand like how cold we are, man. Like I don't get it. Did I see the documentary Quiet on Sense about the abuse that Nickelodeon kids went through? No, I haven't seen it. I've seen a bunch of stuff on Twitter, man. This girl Amanda Bynes, like, this shit almost killed her. I just saw another girl on Twitter. She said that they sent the kids a laptop or something or whatever. And they opened it. It was full of child porn. Nobody got called on it, whatever. Just brutal. Brutal. I saw the one where the little 9-year-old boy was being removed from the rubble of a bombed-out building. I was crying for 15 minutes straight. Yeah. Yeah, man, it's and it's always the reaction to people that's the worst to me, man. It's always like, so? It's like, wow. A guy got prison for sodomizing Drake Bell and then got hired from Disney right after. Drake Bell? Who's Drake Bell? Oh my God. He was one of them Nickelodeon. Yeah, like, I don't, you know, and like, jeez. What a disaster. That's so fucking hard. That's so terrible. Can we talk about the UN Security Council? Matt Ho's speech before the UN Security Council abolished permanent member veto, calling for the abolition of the ability of the U.S. to veto forcing Israel to cease fire. What? But why would they even call for the ability for us to do that when we've demonstrated that we have no political will whatsoever to tell those people to stop? I mean, the Israelis just said a couple days ago, they admitted that they wouldn't be able to continue doing this without our aid, without our weapons. So it's like, we don't even need a veto. We can just say, we as America are no longer sending you any weapons, and that would be the end of it. The dude only got 16 months in prison, which was crazy. So he ruined that kid. He ruined that kid's life. He ruined that dude's life. As I said, Chester Bennington, rest in peace. We can't say specifically, but there's been a lot of, things where he implied that a lot of that shit was going on with him. So what are we doing here? Vin here in San Antonio 2 weeks ago, 21-year-old girl at the rave got shot. Everyone at the rave pulled out their phones, started to record it. No one called 911 to try to help her. Yeah, like our culture right now, man, everybody's got to, Do you think it would be wise for Putin not to retaliate and give Zelensky a new reason to beg for weapons and yet not appear weak? I don't know how he cannot attack them without appearing weak by his own standards. I don't see how that's possible, because then that's going to signal to us that I don't know. The only wisdom I can see is doing an attack where he knows you can make a lot of noise and not take too much life. So like, this is kind of, I called this. You guys remember when we killed Soleimani and everybody was like, oh my God, we're about to be in World War III. And I said, man, them Iranians don't want no smoke with us, bro. Them Iranians are going to throw something at us. It's not going to kill anybody. And they're going to be like, yeah. And literally that's exactly what happened. Those Iranians, they shot a shell and like 2 Americans were concussed or something like that. I literally had people in the comment section, well, you said nothing was going to happen. I guess a concussion isn't a big deal. That literally happened. So like something like that, hell, where it's like they lost 130 people, right? And so I don't think they're as bad as the Israelis. The Israelis are going to do 30x, 60x the amount. But, I mean, if he does 30 times more than that, that would be horrible, right? So it's like, you can match it. You know what I'm saying? Obviously you want as little bloodshed as possible. And I understand we're making a distinction between civilian and combatant, but really, guys, like, if you look at a guy in Ukraine, right, that's not like an all-volunteer army, especially at this point. Right? Everybody in that country has probably lost somebody or lost 2 somebodies. It's not a very big country. They've been in a sustained war with not a superpower, but they used to be a superpower. They got a lot of people. Okay? So this is a very complex situation, but I don't think your average Ukrainian wants any more of this war for a single day. I think that there are hardliners in the Azov battalion, but I think for the most part, your average Ukrainian soldier wants all this shit to be done with. So now these people are going to have to pay a price because folks are pulling stunts, man. It's a terrible situation. Russia goes out of its way to avoid civvies, even though at times it costs Russian soldiers their lives. I mean, I don't know, man. I've seen some pretty horrible videos of the Russians. To be honest with you, every nation that has come out and even like tried to make that argument that I have seen like close up, it's untrue. It's just not true. U.S. instigates all of the wars. The U.S. are the ones instigating the war against Russia. Imagine if Russia were lining up on the... Of course, we don't even have to imagine what would happen. We already had a demonstration of this with the Cuban Missile Crisis, right? We held that Monroe Doctrine. We said, hell, the Atlantic, you better. We almost went to World War III over that shit. Over the Cuban Missile Crisis. They're not even on our border. They share a border with these people. We're bringing up WMDs right up to their border. Don't you remember, guys, that WMDs was the entire reason we went to war in Iraq? It was WMDs. People all the way across the world in sandals were going to come fuck us up because they had WMDs, okay? These people who brought high-tech weapons right to the border of Russia and Ukraine, and you expecting these people to sit there with a gun to their head for a decade and not do anything, man? You out of your mind, bro. You out of your mind. But at the same time, I don't have any illusions about Mr. Putin and the Russians like they're like this moral army. I don't believe that at all. Hell no. Hell no. Vin, is it a crazy stretch to argue that when Jesus showed up to Abraham, that those three were actually the entire Trinity in that moment? I don't think it is, and the reason I don't think it is the entire Trinity is because of the way the narrative progresses and ends. So, for example, the third visitor doesn't show up in the next chapter when the two men visit Sodom. So you had three guys show up, and then the third person who is directly called Yahweh is missing. Then you have the two angels, right? And then it says the two men are then called angels, and then, they bring them out. And then the other reason I truly don't think it's the entire Trinity is because it says, it's in Genesis 19, it says, then Yahweh rained down fire from Yahweh out of heaven. I think what was happening was there's Yahweh on earth, that was Christ. And remember he said, if they're guilty, I'll know, and if not, I'll see. And I think what happened is he sent those two. Obviously, he was there, but he just didn't manifest his presence there. And he observed their attitude and their intentions relative to the Sodomites. And then when he had enough evidence to convict them, basically he looked up and said, all right, let it rip. They're guilty. And so that's what happened. So that's the reason I don't believe that it was the entire Trinity with those three visitors. Good question. 2 weeks ago, I talked with a member of the U.S. Army who told how his unit was forced to train Ukrainian Nazis while stationed in Germany. Oh, I mean, that's yeah, look. Usually, hell, they will attach a Green Beret unit, an ODA. So you'll usually attach an ODA there. The CIA's job a lot of times is the agency guy. You're going there to recruit, finding age males between 18 and 36 who are disaffected, yada, yada, yada. But as far as like training them on basic tactics and procedures and shit like that, arming them, you're usually attached with an ODA. That would be the Green Berets. And they usually train up the militia and all that jazz. Sometimes they'll send combat application guys to do it, depending on how big the operation's supposed to be. Obviously, there's a lot of overlap when guys get out of, Green Berets and they go over to the agency and all the rest of it. But, yeah, I could definitely believe that for sure. And again, I think that the bad actors in Ukraine, the Azov right sector people, I think they have the most influence, but I do not think that they're the biggest, right? But as has been demonstrated, you do not need a majority of the population to commit serious crimes and to destabilize a region. So, that's how I look at that. Yeah, I got a hard time with Russia being a superpower when they've got a GDP almost the equivalent of California. I also have a hard time viewing them as a superpower when I look at our capabilities and their capabilities militarily. When I think about air superiority, There really, really is no comparison between the United States military and anybody else relative to the shit we can do in the air. I don't think. I think if we go on this trajectory that we're going to have serious competition, but I do not think right now that anybody even comes close to us as far as global influence superpower wise. Isn't it overdue for a new conflict to be starting? Well, it might be a new conflict or an old conflict. You know what I'm saying? Like, who knows? Who knows? It's kind of like literally somebody put out a meme like in 2020, Ghostbusters and Dune was out, and then we had what's his face, Biden and Trump. So we had Ghostbusters and Dune out in the movies, and then we had Biden, Trump, and like literally, we're literally in that same situation right now. It's pretty freaking crazy. Pretty crazy to watch. It's been pretty crazy to watch. I gotta tell you guys. You know what? I'll extend this chat. Well, let's extend it for another 10 minutes. If anybody has questions in the next 10 minutes, I will answer them for you guys, because yeah, that 10 minutes went by pretty quickly. Yeah, Applejack. Yeah, man. We did a lot of like the B2, right? Or the SR-71, bro. Like, we had done all the testing and all that. Like the SR-71, for example, which was literally 7 generations ahead of everybody else at the time. We didn't have we had multiple dozens and dozens of failures with the SR, especially with the engine, because we're trying to figure out the balance between weight and horsepower to get the thing to move as fast as it does. So we didn't publish and publicize those experiments, right? And we're doing the B2. Like, there's an entire documentary. Okay, when we were means testing the stealth bomber, there was a Navy guy who was in a parallel base and was observing this stuff. There's a documentary on this. It's a 6-part documentary. It's pretty fucked up. The guy ended up, I don't want to spoil it for you, but they basically concocted this entire UFO story and all the rest of it in order to keep that classified. So I just think that if we are saying things to the public about what we're doing relative to ICBMs and things of that nature, there's reasons for that, and that's as much as I'll say. Well, I'm just trying to get my guild together and all that stuff. If aliens are actually angels and demons that seem to possess a physical body, that makes the Genesis Nephilim story way more scary. I agree. I totally agree with that. I'm about 90% convinced that that's what we're looking at, and I think there's still part of me that's 10% that says there still can be other beings that do not fit in those categories that we were not told about, that could be fiddling around with us, for sure. You have a guava sparkling water kind of thing. I might check that out. Yeah, well, here, Applejack, do me a favor and get me the Russian, anything in Russia that can compete with the SR-71. And think like we had that before, like decades before you and I were born. So I just think that the idea that the American military is releasing to the public our entire arsenal. I think people in our government at times are incompetent, but I also think that we've got some pretty capable people doing some pretty crazy stuff. Yeah, I mean, we're at the point now where, like, I mean, to be honest with you, the SR7, the Blackbird is like, oh, basically retired. You know, at the time, we were trying to deal with, speed and velocity so that we could find ways of. It was sort of like a heavy-handed approach to dealing with radar and things of that nature. I think right now we've got more elegant solutions that are. Like I said, if we had the SR-71 Blackbird back then, that's all I could say. Yeah, I hear you, Chicken Beak. I mean, I'm sure I'm sure they're more advanced than they're letting on, right? I mean, that's just common sense, right? None of us would ever put all of our cards on the table, right? And it's just like in poker. Like, if you're putting something down, there's a reason for it, right? It's just a chess match, right? Like, if I'm exposing this pawn, there's a reason I'm exposing the pawn. Or if I'm doing jiu-jitsu, right, and I put my arm down there, I'm doing that on purpose because you got that 90-degree angle and it's just going to be too hard for you to resist it. And the minute you put your hand down there to get that Kimura, I knew you were going to do that. I'm going to shift weight on you, right? So my point is, I'm sure the Russians have things in their inventory that would blow your mind, that we don't know about. I'm certain of that. All I'm saying is that we've had things from decades and decades ago. That Star Wars shit is all I'm saying. We should be living like a world in Airplane 2 where we had civilian tours of the moon, but no, our Nick wants more money for dead. And yeah, I mean, yeah, we could really be like coming together as a human family and exploring the galaxy and shit, doing really cool shit, maybe figuring out what's like under the ocean. You know what I'm saying? Like, we know more about the moon supposedly than the ocean. So that's also another thing. Everyone is waiting on Putin to show why he's been in office so long. Well, I think his standing up to America and giving America the finger and steering them through a pretty dark period in their history, I think is gonna have, lasting effects for him. For sure. Make it so. All right, guys, it's 3 minutes. I think I got time for one more question. Shape-shifting lizards. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. Like, I'm a free agent right now for pretty damn near everything. To be honest with you, I'm a free agent for everything. What's up, Kamikaze? I think that I don't know about the lizard people thing, but I do think that just looking at it from a naturalistic secular perspective, right? Like, billions and billions and billions of galaxies and all this shit, we're the only ones. Like, come on, man, that doesn't make any sense. Like, it even mathematically doesn't make sense. So if that's the case, then we got people talking about simulation hypothesis, all the rest of it. I mean, the world is crazy. There's so many essays I want to do. I don't know what I'm going to do. Like, I'm thinking about doing another channel. I don't know. Free agent for everything means that I am open to pretty much the finding the truth in every conspiracy theory legend, if that makes any sense. Like, I'm a lot more open to a person saying, the government's lying to us here for this reason, etc., etc. Like over time, I'm a lot more open to it. The problem with conspiracy theories is that those things are like, there's usually, especially now, there's usually about like 34% of the truth in there. And so the people that look at the 34% truth then take that as 100% truth. And then what ends up happening is that because it's 34% truth, that means that it's what, like 41 or whatever, 44, 43, 46, whatever. Because it's 36%, 34% truth, probably 46% false. And so the people that, they're just going to look at the falsehood and laugh at the falsehood and act like there's nothing true about it. And then vice versa, the people that jump on the 34% are thinking that it's at 100%. And so anybody that doesn't believe them, they think is, you know, in the Matrix or whatever. And so that's one of the reasons that conspiracy theories are so hard to unpack, because there's so much human ego and presupposition and ignorance connected to it. Last thing we should be doing is sending radio waves into space advertising our location. Well, that's the other thing, real science. I kind of tend to agree. Like, why? Like, it's almost like this, like, Camelotian, like, assumption that these beings are, because they're smarter than us or whatever, that they're going to be, like, more moral than us. Or we assume that treating us well is like a morally good thing to do. Like, what if in their calculus, like, eliminating us is better for the universe as a whole, or our little corner of the galaxy? Like, how do you know that these dudes are operating with the same paradigms that we are? I'm like, dude, leave me alone. Like, no. Like, well, my people will call your people. Yeah. I read that Obama is actually Obama. I read that Osama. Oh, shit. Osama is actually Obama. Now, Osama bin Laden was tall. He was very, very, very tall. Here comes Joe Biden. Don't worry, my administration will protect us from weird space aliens. I got your back. Vin, when U.S. military jets say that Russian weapons are frightening, are we really the most dominant? Yes, absolutely. Because if the Russian weapons are really frightening and the Russians have been so bad because they've been the boogeyman for the last decade, then we're going to have to go and increase that military budget, Applejack. If we say, man, them niggas is using shit from fucking 40, 50 years ago, then you're going to have a hard time on Capitol Hill arguing for money, right? But if you tell people, yeah, these people are still using Kalashnikovs and shit in their general issue, but no, they've got some frightening weapons. Well, I mean, okay. You look at ETs like that because you're projecting human fear onto them because we treat each other so horribly. Well, no, I don't believe, if I squash an ant, I don't believe that I'm treating the ant horribly. I'm sure I've probably got, I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of ants or whatever I've dispatched to eternity at the bottom of the wheel of my car. I don't feel anything about that. When I'm driving and like a fly or something like squashes into my windshield, I'm like, man, I'm upset about the inconvenience of like turning on my wiper and shit. I don't have, the only thing about that thing's body being squashed across my windshield is the annoyance of the fact that it's impeding my view. So that's what I'm saying. Like, it's not about projecting fear, because quite frankly, I don't believe that God would ever allow an alien force to ever, like, you know, take human agency from us and enslave us. I don't think that would ever, I just don't think that would ever happen. I don't think God would allow it. And I actually think that a lot of these quote unquote spacecraft are actually angels stopping us from ending ourselves in a nuclear holocaust. I mean, these things have been reported at pretty much every nuclear facility we've had. A lot of people don't know, but the Oppenheimer stuff and the Roswell stuff are also connected. There are official reports of these devices or these beings or whatever you want to call them shutting down our ability to arm our nuclear warheads. And while that is happening, Russians have their nuclear warheads armed and aimed at us. They literally had to call us and say, this is not us. And we believed it because the same thing happened to us in the inverse. Okay, so I don't have any fear of those beings, but I am thinking theoretically, if I was a secularist, I don't know why all these people would be signaling to these beings to come pay attention to us. Because if they're that advanced to figure out how to harness quantum entanglement so that they can traverse these ridiculous distances in time, then we're going to have to assume that they're 5,000 generations ahead of us. And if that's the case, would they evolve to the point where, from their perceptibility, we would be the equivalent of a little ant? Like, we have our own little world that's important to us, but so did the ants. So did all the ants that you've murdered on the highway. You see what I'm saying? So I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Like I said, I don't believe that would ever happen. I don't believe God would allow that to happen. I think that there are allotted regions in the universe, and I think that beings that would do that are restricted from doing so. That's what I believe. But yeah. There's literally tech we're talking about earlier we have in its known craft that can do 25 miles an hour or some shit. I mean, as I said, guys, look at the specs for the SR-71 Blackbird. Okay, like I said, it's basically, look, the thing goes faster than a bullet. Like, when it literally is faster than a bullet in the air. I mean, it's an incredible machine. And that shit was flying around in the air in the 60s and the 70s. Good night. Chicken beak, I agree. Completely different when traversing the cosmos. If there are people visiting this plane, it's multidimensional. I agree. I believe that those beings are interdimensional. I'm just going with the previous theory that these are interplanetary instead of interdimensional. And that was the case. The only way I think they'd be able to accomplish that would be to somehow harness quantum entanglement, because when you look at quantum entanglement or spooky action at a distance, it literally does not matter how far those things are away from each other. They're still communicating as if they're right next to each other, because they probably are. But yeah, I'm more in the Jacques Vallée kind of perspective relative to these beings. When you talk about leprechauns or all these sort of mythologies, it's very interesting. It's always these small, what's a leprechaun? A small guy in green, right? Little green man. So I just think that these are, if I was an interdimensional being, based on the time period I'm in and based on the collective lore and the collective understanding and imagination based on how far we've progressed in science and religion and philosophy, I am going to manifest myself as some sort of anomaly that you are going to relate as being somehow superior to you, right? When we talk about aliens, there's always this idea that they're superior. If you're talking about angels, they're always superior. All these beings are all superior. They're either stronger than us, smarter than us, better than us, more moral than us, whatever. They're always superior to us. So if I was one of those beings, you would just manifest what your current zeitgeist would interpret as supernatural or superhuman or whatever, and that then can influence history without directly having to make anyone do anything. Do you feel like God is more like that we are eating the apple at this point, that the scripture was a warning? I do think that there is a implicit warning about illicit knowledge prior to maturity. In other words, you'd have to be a really evil person to give a toddler a loaded gun. Now, there's gonna be some point where you take the toddler out to the range because the toddler is no longer a toddler, and you say, look, we hunt to feed our family. This is how we feed our family. If you're one of these Second Amendment people, somebody breaks in the house and you want a gun for home defense, you're eventually going to take your kid and you're going to train him on how to use that weapon in a way that's going to benefit him, right? If you give a 2-year-old a loaded weapon, it's because we're automatically going to assume about you that you're an evil person. And so when you look at the Bible and God said, okay, here's a tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Don't eat it. You'll die. There's nothing in the text that says or even implies that God was always going to keep them ignorant. There's nothing that says that. All it says is, for now, don't eat this because this knowledge is not knowledge that you're prepared to imbibe. And so God made it clear that's a gun. Do not load it. Do not shoot it. Keep away from it. And then here comes the devil, and the devil gives him a loaded gun and says, oh, man, what kind of God is that? He's keeping knowledge from you. Anybody that keeps knowledge from you is really, really suspect. Man, take this gun, man. He can use it. You can use it. I do think that that's a very important story to continue to tell ourselves. Like when you have things like cloning, for example, or when you have things like AI, it's like that quote in Jurassic Park where it's like, we asked ourselves, could we do it? And instead, the question that we should have asked was, should we do it? I think that's a pretty accurate kind of assessment. I do think that there's a warning like that in the scripture overall. I got a question. Where's the lady? Did she quit the show? Yes, she quit the show. Do you think we're ready to imbibe AI? Have we not always been behind as humans with soul? There are too many unanswered questions about AI to me to where I do not feel confident that we're not going to do something to really, really fuck everything up, to be honest with you. Yeah, I mean, I was listening to Anna Kasparian. She was saying, like, when those dudes attacked her, she said, I had no gun on me. She said, I didn't have nothing on me. And those people... The only time I hear people say that is people that were used to carrying weapons. So, in a Kasparian, I promise you, that's never going to happen to Shorty again. I promise you. She's got her little pink little pocket 9 milli like them girls in Houston used to do at work. I show up at work, all them girls are strapped. Them girls had matching 9s, bro. They had like pink 9s with little roses on them and shit. They didn't play around. You took them girls to the range, they would send you to the other side for sure. Shorty has a headache. She didn't quit the show. Nah, she didn't quit the show. Holy hell. I think AI in its current iteration is going to probably be sued out of the public square. Yeah, the liability with regards to copyright and child safeguarding, all that mess will put those... Yeah, I mean... Yeah, unless the government believes they can find a way to monetize the hell out of that shit. Find some way to tax all that. I don't know. And the other thing, it's kind of like Bitcoin. Like, even if you can't do something legally, once we get the tech and we know how to do it, then... Now you got the all these areas in the dark web where that shit can be hosted, and it'll probably be even worse. It's one of those things where it's like once the cat's out of the bag, I don't know how you bring that back, man. I'm not sure. What's up, Kai? Do you think Julian Assange will have an accident? Will decide to just kill himself like that Boeing whistleblower did? Yeah, man, that was crazy, dude. Of all the people to whack, right? Like, yeah, that was incredible. The biggest thing to me was the Epstein thing. So it's like, that's the thing that freaks me out, is that all of us none of us believes that Epstein killed himself. So what we're all saying is, we believe that our government officials, like actors that are current in our government, are so corrupt that they all took part in whatever, this Mossad operation, whatever you want to call it, okay? But they have enough to where they had credible evidence of blackmail to the point where this guy was able to control some of those powerful people in the country. And we're saying that right before he was brought to justice and all that tea could be spilled, he killed himself, but he really didn't. We believe that the government killed him. And we believe that both sides of the government killed him, because both sides of the government told us the story, but none of us believed the story. This is one of the funniest things to me about my like Trump supporting friends. Trump went along with the Epstein narrative. He never questioned it. But none of you believe that that's how he went out. So if Trump is being attacked by the deep state, why is he participating in that deep state action? Which is, I don't think anybody really truly realizes how significant the Epstein assassination was. This is a government boldly and nakedly saying, we're going to kill this guy in front of all of you. And we know that you know that it's not true, but we're going to keep saying it's not true, and none of y'all are going to do anything about it. That, as a test case, is terrifying. It's not like Julian Assange, because even with Julian Assange, there isn't a complete universal story about what's happening with Julian Assange. You have some people, you have CNN, he's a political prisoner, blah, 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 blah. With Epstein, it is 100% across the board. He killed himself in prison. No question. I don't know, man. That right there is terrifying to me. And I need one of my Trump supporting friends to answer this. If he's not part of the deep state, why did he go along with the Epstein story when all of us know that that's not what happened? Vin, do you think Destiny destroyed Norman Finkelstein with all the same arguments he used against when he defended Ukraine? That debate was very, very painful. I'm not going to lie to you. I had a debate one time on abortion, and the guy didn't come prepared. And he also ended up having to quote Wikipedia. I keep telling you guys, like, you're going to get waxed. You're going to get waxed quoting Wikipedia. But that Destiny kid, look, man, I can show you videos of TikTokers who have been approached by the Israeli government. And they were bribed. A lot of them were bribed, and a lot of them were threatened. Okay, I can show you those conversations. So that's all I'll say about that. What's up, Chris? I don't think the deep state is aligned on all subjects. I agree. Like most rich, crazy people, I think they disagree on some subjects and get in tiffs. That's most people, right? Like, I'm sure people like me like half the time, right? Like you like me half the time. The other half, you're like, man, fuck that guy, bro. You know, they're just like everybody else. I keep trying to tell my son, like, these people are not, the scripture says, Psalm chapter 2, it says, why do the nations rage and the peoples plot together? The kings of the earth set themselves and the rulers take counsel together against the Lord and against his anointed. So against God and the Lord Jesus. That would be you, Mr. Clavin, and you, Mr. Shapiro. Let us burst their bands apart and cast away their cords from us. So it's like, we're gonna undo the rule of Jesus and God the Father. And the next verse says, he who sits in the heavens laughs. The Lord holds them in derision. He mocks them. Sometimes somebody will say something, I start laughing at him. I can't help it, dear listener. I'm created in the image of God. God is laughing at these people. I'm not worried about these people and their conspiracies, bro. I'm not worried one bit. I laugh at them, but at the same time, I laugh because they're not going to be successful in their ultimate goals, but that doesn't mean that we can't cry along the way, because there's a lot of fucking suffering that the world gets subsumed under with these people's attempt to rule the world and take over. Do we believe morgue reports on Epstein is that his body is killed and buried? Well, I told Sori this. I don't know if I've ever said that publicly, but we've never seen that man's body either. You see what I'm saying? We don't know if he's in Aruba right now with the name, John Smith or whatever, with blonde hair and a beach body now. We don't know what tech and all the rest of the shit does. We didn't see that guy get buried. You didn't see bin Laden get buried either, right? So how do we know? What's up, big homie Dan? Hell says my thoughts exactly. Yeah, and I'm more inclined. I think we're pretty aligned on this subject. I think that when I was very, very young and impressionable, in my mind, man, the American warfighter, man, that guy was the ultimate. And I was blessed to just live around people that had done amazing things. And this is like right before 9/11, literally, like as we were moving in from New York to Maine, like the guy that was helping us in was a Navy SEAL. Like literally the guy was a Navy SEAL. He earned all his bones in Grenada and shit. Like I used to go over his place. He used to tell me this is all shit before 9/11 happened. So like I was just completely enamored with that whole thing. And it was a very crazy awakening to realize that our intelligence apparatus, I mean, it's incredible. Anyway, but then it's kind of it's a real disillusionment when you see how cheap American life is to people. I don't know. I'm saying too much. Dude from the FTX managed to have all charges related to bribing government officials dropped and the names of the officials redacted from public view. Yeah. Good, Jet. You're back home safe. That's good. Never heard your thoughts about Aaron Bushnell. That's the guy that did the Hottie Cotty thing. I did not watch the video. Because he did not need to convince me. I wonder I understand the sentiment, but I almost wonder if the guy was such a good, there's a scripture. It says, men of whom the world was not worthy. And I just think that he did not belong in the time period that we're in. For that kid to think that act of protest would leave a lasting mark is him not understanding the kind of culture he's actually in. When it was a Vietnam guy or the Tibetan guy did it, it was an iconic moment. And the guy that took the picture, I'm pretty sure, won the Pulitzer Prize. And it was this iconic moment, and it just arrested the attention of the world. But that was during a time before the internet, before all of us have witnessed hundreds, some of us thousands of actual deaths on our screens. There's a Jordanian pilot that was shot down. His last name was Kosaspa. And ISIS set him alive, set him on fire. They burned him alive. When that photo was shot of that Vietnamese or Tibetan protester, there was a sense in which we were still in our infancy relative to our minds and our consciences. We could still be moved by suffering collectively. People are no longer moved by suffering. Because we have access to the entire world at large, some of this is just plain entropy, and some of this is just plain a defense mechanism because you got to wake up and go to work tomorrow. But so many of us have seen, I mean, look, my city, dude randomly decided on a Wednesday to go out and kill 20 of us. The average person, especially the average American, has seen people die in real life, probably hundreds of times, and have seen people die on TV probably thousands of times by the time you hit your 30s. And so a protest like that, the world was not worthy of him being here. Because this man actually truly, truly thought that such a radical action would stir the hearts of people. And that just demonstrates to me that it's probably merciful that God took him from us. So that's kind of my take on the kid. We were not worthy of having somebody like that in our country to represent us, and we were not worthy to have him on this planet. And this man was so naive as to think that something like that could move us. What he doesn't realize is anybody that was moved by that action did not need that action. The Palestinian kid crying for his mom was enough. Just like I don't need to see a bunch of, Israelis getting shot. All I need to see is those motherfuckers beating that girl. I don't need to know their names. I don't want to know what happened to them. I don't care. I don't care what was done to you. Those people deserve to die. Fuck those people. I don't need to see a lot of shit. Those people in Hamas that did that shit to that girl, you deserve to die. We should hunt you down. We should go to Qatar, which is where a lot of you guys fled to. You guys still got a bill to pay. But, yeah, man, that's my take on the Aaron Bushnell thing. I actually avoided it, for that reason. I avoided it because honestly, truly, I don't believe that a person like that can last long in a world like this. With the realities of the world as it is right now, I don't think a person that's constituted the way that he was constituted could live in this world anyway. And, all of us have different ways. I take a very cynical kind of perspective and assumption on how people can look at all this carnage and be so unfeeling. But the fact of the matter is, it's hell to empathize with these people. I mean, the empathy that this kid had, look how far it drove him. And so sometimes when I look at that and I go, this kid, I'm sure a lot of this was protest, but I also believe a lot of this was, I don't want to live in a world like this, man. I'm sure there was some of that going on too. And I think with some of my friends, that sensitivity is there. And instead of setting themselves on fire in real life, maybe they shut down their emotions and just completely shut it off so that they don't feel what all the rest of us are feeling and then have to deal with the powerlessness of not being able to do anything. So I just think that we maybe we try to give each other some grace during this situation. Everybody's dealing with the hell that's putting out in front of us in different ways, I guess. But yeah, rest in peace to Aaron Bushnell, and obviously as a Christian, I see so much Jesus in that, right? Because Jesus is looking down and he's like, all right, I'm gonna take all this onto myself. And for thousands of years, as God is looking at human history and the way we're treating each other, it's almost like he was saying, I gotta get in the middle of that shit to feel what these people are feeling, but also to like take it all into myself. Because when you're a parent or when you're a friend and you love someone and you see someone in pain, like you don't want the pain to, you do anything to make the pain stop. And like if you, in your mind, you're like, if I could like touch that person and transfer all that sensation to me, I would do it. And I think that's what Jesus is doing on the cross. I think that every second of pain that Aaron Bushnell felt, Jesus was feeling with it. So that impulse is very high image of God stuff, but he should have never done it because somebody has already been set on fire for my sins, man, and the sins of my country. So you shouldn't have done that, Aaron. But I also believe that God loved you deeply in that moment because of it. I do not believe that martyrdom guarantees you heaven. Only the death of Christ guarantees you heaven, but I believe the Lord is gracious and compassionate, and we don't know the moments between those last moments of what we could see and what was going on in the spiritual world. We don't know what was going on between him and God. But my Lord Jesus is gracious, compassionate, slow to anger, and rich in love. He's good to all. He has compassion on all he has made. You got to check out the new X-Men cartoon reboot. It's a direct continuation of the 90s cartoon. Dude, I've been hearing about that and people saying X-Men is going woke and all the rest of it. I was like, man, the entire thing was a metaphor of like racism and like homophobia and stuff. Like it's not going woke, but yeah, I'll definitely check it out. Imagine canceling someone's cash because they're Palestinians speaking up for their own people in the land where their father was born. I mean, Bodica, we saw that happening to Russians. You had Russian tennis players that got suspended from opens and all the rest of this shit because they would not denounce Russia. Like, this is insane. That's how these people eat. And again, like, nobody's crying for millionaires. That's fine. But, like, that's how these people eat and feed their families and shit and establish their legacies. And that's what they worked for their entire life, you know? And now it's like, oh, you're not decrying your homeland. You're not betraying your country. You're going to fuck up your life. Yeah, man. It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. It's incredible who that happens to and who that never happens to. A lot of people like series with metaphors from marginalized people precisely because actual marginalized people aren't present. They can enjoy the drama of a struggle without seeing those people. That's really crazy because there's not a lot of black dudes. There's not a lot of homies in X-Men 90, overall. You know what I'm saying? Like, even when folks are trying with the representation thing, like, it's like, God bless them, but like, that is real though. That is real. Like, that's undeniable. Like, we can't deny that. That's what a hell of an insight. Yeah, as the Father shows compassion to those who fear him, he knows our frame. He remembers that we're dust. That's exactly right. That is exactly right. He remembers that we're dust. I can't tell you how many times I've said, hey, I'm dust. You gotta give me I'm dust. yeah, that's my thought process on that beautiful guy. That beautiful guy. I needed those words today about Jesus Christ. Thank you. Well, I need him. Every 2 seconds, man. So it's just stuff that I'm telling myself that I let slip out. After seeing these reaction to the series with metaphors and marginalized people, actually, I no longer trust those metaphors help people empathize. I did not find out that the X-Men was one of those metaphors until much, much later in my life. So I definitely get your point. And, you know, it probably would have been a lot more clear and obvious to me if there was a little bit more representation. But you know what it's like when you're black, you don't even, you don't have a lot of markers, you know what I'm saying, of representation. So, you know, you're just always an observer in other people's shit. So, like, that wasn't even in my mind. Would that have been okay to do to Nazi Germany athletes? No, I don't think it's ever right to make a countryman repudiate his country as a gateway to entry. No, I think we need to keep those things separate. You know, our country killed 1 million people, at least in Iraq and Afghanistan. Nobody forced us to swear off America. Nobody forced us to swear off America all those times we went to the Olympics. I do remember one time, though, like that Olympic, I think it was 2001, 2002 or whatever, that Bush was up there looking down at the crowd. When the Iranians got in there, he had a scowl because he just called them the axis of evil. I remember that. Nobody forced Americans to decry their government. As a matter of fact, we were out here celebrating, spiking a football when we started bombing the shit out of innocent people. We had a song called Courtesy of the Red, White, and Blue. The Uncle Sam put your name at the top of his list. Statue of Liberty started shaking her fist. And the eagle will cry, it's going to be hell. And you hear Mother Freedom start ringing her bell. And it'll feel like the whole wide world was coming down on you. It's brought to you courtesy of the Red, White, and Blue. Boy, I was raised, I got hip-hop in my blood and veins, bruh. But man, that song came on, I was a country boy. I got myself a little Texas gallon hat and shit. I started running around saying, yeah, courtesy of the Red, White, and Blue, bitch. What do you mean? Nobody made me swear off America. We were writing songs, laughing about bombing the shit out of people. Kai, nobody made me decry America. As a matter of fact, that was when all of us were like, America, bitch, what? Remember that? So no, I don't think it's right for Nazi athletes. I don't think it's right for American athletes. And I don't think it's right for Russian athletes to make people betray and denounce their own country. If you have a dictator in your country, okay, who's going around killing shit, and there's a world war going on, we're going to kill that motherfucker. It's okay. There's going to be a new government. We don't need this guy to decry his government. That's sports are supposed to bring us all together. Sports is supposed to be the thing where we go, like we're all little kids in the sandlot and shit. You guys can have your beef or whatever, but when it's time to play kickball, we playing kickball, bro. We need that. We need that. We need to keep those lines where they are so that we can have civilization while we're fighting each other. The fact that we had Olympics during World War II and shit like that, that's good. That's promising for the human race. Did you identify with the Indian and no Westerns? I believe, like Gene. Well, that's interesting. I'm not sure because my stepdad was really big into Westerns. And so I thought they were trash because it wasn't a cartoon and it wasn't ninja fighting. So I just thought they were trash. So sorry. I don't really have anything on you there. Thing is, since WW2, we've been cooing governments all over the world and planning. Of course, yeah, of course. Venezuela, blah 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 blah. Haiti, like we're in the middle of everything. We're in the middle of everything. Exactly. Vin, do you condemn Ben Shapiro for not firing Candace Owens sooner than anti-Semitism? I think what happened is they came to a mutual agreement and they bought out her contract. They said, "Fine, bitch, we'll give you your contract at the end of the year, whatever." Shout out to Ben Shapiro and all those guys fighting the scourge of anti-Semitism. Never again. Just to the Palestinians, subhanAllah. Vin, what are your thoughts on Eve? We aren't given much, but what do you think of our first mother? Oh my God, Eve to me is one of my Bible heroes. In my top 3, probably my favorite person in the world other than the Lord Jesus. I love Eve. I love her relationship to God. Eve is actually the one that's given the first, real gospel image. When after, God looks at the serpent and he says, "I'll put enmity between you and the woman." Very interesting. Adam is left out here. Like, this is feminist as fuck. Adam is left out. So Adam is there, Eve is there, devil's there, however you want to imagine him. I'm imagining him as a very glorious angel or whatever. But they're all there reporting to Yahweh, right? And Adam is the man, and he's patriarchy, right? And literally the most important verses in Genesis are God turning his back to Adam and talking to Eve and the serpent as if Adam's not there. He's like, I'll put enmity between you and the woman, between your seed and her seed. He shall bruise your head and you'll strike his heel. Right? So there's this conversation happening. God's like, yeah, I'm going to tell the story of world history. World history is going to be the children of Eve versus the children of the serpent. That's all world history. And one of Eve's kids is going to give a definitive death blow by crushing the head. And as he's doing that, Satan is going to attack him at the heel. And of course, people got crucified literally through their heels. It was a pretty literal prophecy. Jesus gets crucified on Skull Hill. And as he's being crucified, the scripture says that he exposed the principalities and the powers to open shame by triumphing over them through the cross. And so, that's Eve. Eve is the mother of all the physical living and the mother of all the spiritual living. In the next chapter, when Eve gets pregnant, she says, I've gotten a man with the help of the Lord. So again, when she talks about having her child, again, Adam is completely etched out of the picture, and she says, I've got a man with the help of the Lord. It's she has such a dynamic and raw and real relationship to God, and you don't hear that coming out of Adam. I mean, look, I don't have a lot of use for Adam. Okay, to be honest with you, I'm not one of those guys. I don't have much use for Adam. He's just worthless to me as far as a man and all the rest of it goes. But Eve is just a profoundly incredible character to me. Just absolutely amazing character. So yeah, I'm a big fan of Eve for sure. One of my favorite characters in the Bible, and one of the people that reminds me of Sori the most in the Bible. I would correlate Sori is Eve to me for sure. See, look, here's another one. So Cain kills Abel, right? And so it says, Adam laid with his wife Eve again. She gave birth to a son, and she named him Seth, saying, God has granted me another child in Abel since Cain killed him. So she's just so God-focused. She has everything in her life goes back to her relationship with God. And Adam, I don't want to be disrespectful because the scripture says honor your father and mother. But in these three instances, Adam is just like completely etched out of the story. It's weird. It's weird. Practically speaking, who did their kids have their kids with? I mean, look, these guys were living 500, 600, 700 years. So that doesn't really bother me at all. It would be the same answer, right? We had a common ancestor. And at some point we had two folks, right? And they procreated. But yeah, that never really was a problem for me. At some level, everybody had to be incestuous at the beginning. But yeah, man, I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of Eve. Adam is. I mean, I really can't find one positive thing said about Adam other than the fact that he was created, I guess. But other than that, I don't really have a lot of use for Adam in the Bible, to be honest with you. There's not really much. There's not much I can point to Adam to my kids and say, be like that. Most of the time with Adam, it's don't be like that. Like, there's nothing I can see in this dude's character where I'm like, yeah, man, like you had two boys about to beef with each other and you didn't know that one of them was mad enough to kill the other one. How did you miss that, bro? I don't know, man. Like, I don't know. And it doesn't seem to me that the author of Genesis had much use for him either. Because like I said, he doesn't say anything. He doesn't say anything positive about him. But Eve, we keep getting showed how, like, dynamic Eve's relationship with God is. Like, she relates God to everything. Happiness, tragedy. Hey, I've got a man with the help of the Lord. Hey, the Lord just gave me another man to replace Seth, Abel, because like, she just relates everything to God, whether she's happy, whether she's sad, whether she has tragedy, whether everything goes back to that close relationship with Yahweh. And I just don't see that with Adam, man. I don't see it. So I see him having sex. I mean, literally, that's Adam's contributions in Genesis are him having sex with Eve and giving us Cain and Abel and giving us Seth for the genealogy in Genesis 5. But other than that, like, he really doesn't have a function in the passage other than to I mean, honestly, like, this is one of those things where, like, you expect this is an ancient Near Eastern document. If one person was just going to be a breeder, you would assume that they would make the woman the breeder. But in reality, when you hear Adam and Eve, he doesn't do any contributions. All he does is get people pregnant, but he doesn't give us any spiritual insight whatsoever to anything. Like, literally nothing. Cain kills Abel, and all we see Adam do is have sex and have another kid. And it's Eve that gives us some sort of spiritual context. And Eve is the one that gives us the first theology of suffering. She's the first one that relates God to her suffering. Adam does not. So, like, I don't see any use for Adam in the scripture. Yeah, Kai, I don't know what the historical circumstances are between you and Russia, okay? But I am sure that they've done horrible things to your folks. But that does not mean that justifies all the horrible shit that we've done to them. And I'm specifically talking about America, Kai. I am not invalidating the suffering of any of your people. Believe me, I've been part also of a people who have suffered unjustly at the hands of other people. But that does not justify the actions, the incitement, the threatening of Russian people. And it does not justify the sanctions, which Noam Chomsky and others who are conversant with this call acts of war. We have made life horrible for those Russian people, and we're not doing that for y'all. We're doing that for our purposes, and our country is using your fear and hatred of those people in order to push our agenda. I can assure you, my country doesn't give a flying fuck about you and your people and what the Russians did to your folks. We don't fucking care. We have our own agenda. And I can almost promise you it's about building the United States empire and has nothing to do with you getting any get back or whatever it is for your beef with Russia. I can tell you as a person who has had my people endure various calamities, I think you need to let it go, is what I think. I think you need to let it go, and I think you need to move on. Because you're not being set up to look at this rationally. I promise you, our country does not want you thinking rationally about this topic, man. Have you ever heard the argument that Eve and humanity are punished for having a choice? I have heard that argument, and I just don't see the logic in it. The fact that consequences follow choices is what makes a choice a choice. A choice is not real unless there are consequences that follow it. Now, consequence does not necessarily mean something bad will happen. If you do 3-minute planks a day, a consequence, the sequence that goes with that action is you'll lose weight, you'll cut down on your waistline, you'll have a stronger core. That's a sequence that goes with doing planks, X planks a day. And so if you make a decision, then you have to live with the consequences, because that's ultimately what respect is. When you're dealing with somebody that you don't respect, you either here, let me give you an example, right? Like I've got my toddler. My toddler watches me play Fortnite, right? And sometimes he's figured out that there's something about that controller that influences that game to manipulate the character. So he wants to play. Now, everybody that's had a little brother knows how to solve that problem. All you do is give him a controller that doesn't have any batteries in it. Why? Because none of his actions on that remote are going to have consequences in the game. He can't affect the game in any real way. No matter what he does on that joystick, nothing will happen. The game will remain exactly the same. Why? Because he's a baby, and I do not respect his power of choice relative to the video game. But I've also got a 14-year-old. And when I hand her the controller, I leave the batteries in. And the decisions that she makes has real consequences in the game. So I think what was happening with Eve was that God was saying, I'm giving you guys a choice, and I'm putting the batteries in the controller. None of us in this world, all of us get to choose what we do. We almost never get to choose the response of the action. Like even if you do push-ups, right? If you say, I'm going to do push-ups, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, that's not something you chose. The way that your body reacts to your push-ups is not something that you're doing. What you're doing is you're taking advantage of the way that God created the world. You're saying, as a consequence of doing 50 push-ups, what we've seen is that the way that God designed the body, it's better for your body. And so that action has a real consequence, but we don't even control those consequences. If you and I do the exact same workout regimen, you and I are going to have we're going to have similar but different exact results, right? And so when I think about Adam and Eve in the garden and all that, I think of it as God respecting his creation and leaving the batteries in the remote. If Eve could have done that, then and nothing would have happened, then it wouldn't have been a genuine choice. If there are no real world consequences from the action, then it's indifferent or non-different from not doing the action in the first place. So if God loves Eve, there has to be an actual consequence if she's actually playing the game. Thank you. I thought this, but I was admonished for saying so and cannot argue more because it is not my area to have strong conviction. I've only begun reading the Bible. Yeah, I don't think you should be admonished for that because it is not wrong to say she was punished for making a decision. That's not wrong to say. What I'm saying is ultimately in a philosophical sense, I understand how a person could say, well, how could you punish somebody just for making a choice just because you disagree with the choice? and there's lots of ways to answer that question, but the most general way I answer that question is to say, if your actions don't have any consequences in the real world, then it's not a real action, and God is just playing games with us. I like the fact that my actions have consequences, because it means that I'm really playing the game. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm really, like, it counts. It's like sometimes, like, we're watching the All-Star game, like the last All-Star game, it was like, I don't know, like 500 to like 400 or some ridiculous thing like that. And the reason, it's like there's no consequence. There's no consequence to the All-Star game. See what I'm saying? Whereas when you have the championship on the line, that's when everybody's playing, right? When it's playing for keeps and it's winner take all and it's a zero-sum game, that's when you're at the edge of your seat. That's when you're sweating. That's when you're calling your friends. And then when it goes well, it's the greatest party of all time, right? And so I want to live in that world where I'm respected by my creator and my actions absolutely have consequences. But I also think it is crazy for Christians to be upset that people are saying, well, wait a fucking second. Like the first time I had that problem, it was Exodus 4. God said, all right, I'm going to send you Moses. You got to go talk to Pharaoh. I'm going to harden his heart. He's not going to listen to you. And then I'm just going to go fuck him up. Right? So Moses goes over there and he goes, hey, God says, let the people go. Pharaoh says, who? Moses says, Yahweh. Yahweh said, let the people go. Pharaoh says, who's Yahweh? I don't know who Yahweh is. I'm God on the earth. What are you talking about? Hell no, I'm going to let them people go. So it says, Pharaoh wouldn't let them go because the Lord hardened his heart. So I went to my mom. I said, Mom, I said, Pharaoh. She said, yeah. I said, he's evil, right? She said, hell yeah, that nigga's evil. That's why the Lord destroyed him. I'm like, hell yeah, fuck that nigga, bro. I was like, but it says here that God hardened his heart. She's like, yeah? And I was like, well, it says that God hardened his heart, and so he wouldn't let the people go. So she's like, yeah? My mom's Jamaican, right? She always used to love my little Bible questions, but then when I asked that second question, the mood changed, the temperature in the room dropped, all types of and I was like, I don't know, like God like made him disobey and then punished him for disobeying. And Mom was like, yeah? What you saying? I was like, well, I mean, it doesn't sound fair and it doesn't make sense. What are they talking about? How dare you? Blah, 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 blah. I can't question God. Who are you? Blah, blah, blah. You're 8 years old. So that happened to me when I was a kid. I was like, well, it wasn't until like, literally, guys, it took me like 20 years. So I ran into John Piper to find a satisfactory answer to that problem. But yeah. Like, so I'm sure you probably got rebuked for asking that question. Yeah, Applejack, just like I got rebuked for asking that question, just like Sora used to get rebuked for asking all her questions over at Bible college and shit. Like, it's amazing to me. But you know what it is like a lot of people are like insecure about their own faith, and so, they technically speaking, did Absalom do the right thing by? Hell yeah, he did the right thing by killing. Okay, so what happened is that these guys were in a blended family, okay? So you had half-sisters, quarter-sisters, half-brothers, whatever. This guy, Amnon, falls in love with one of his half-sisters. This is one of the reasons I know that the Bible's true, because all of this guy's tea is out for everybody to know. You know David, like David and Goliath, the dude that, like, killed Goliath, that guy. Like, there's an entire backstory and front story to this guy all through the Bible. And, like, his family life is scandalous as fuck, bro. Like, it's terrible. So anyway, because he's running through so many women, he's got all these half brothers and half kids and whatever. So anyway, this guy, Amnon, falls in love with this woman, Tamar. And it's really interesting because it's one of the things I talk about with the girls from time to time. It said that he loved her. And then he concocted this plan. He told her that he had COVID, so she went to take care of him. And then he basically locked her in the room, and then he violated her. And so her full brother Absalom hears about it. And the entire kingdom basically heard about it. And David, who I would say was a bit of a misogynist, bit of a chauvinist misogynist, did nothing. Did nothing. So Absalom, so here you go. You've got Amnon who rapes his half-sister Tamar, okay? Absalom and Tamar are full-blooded brother and sister. David, the father of all these kids, does nothing. Absalom then throws a party. And he invites David to the party. He invites all his brothers. This is like a year later. He invites his brothers and sisters. And David, at the last minute, decides he's not going to go to the party. At the party, Absalom finds the dude that raped his sister, his half-brother, and murders him in front of everybody. Now, biblically speaking, the scripture is very clear about what should happen to a person who holds a girl down against her will when she's crying out for help. You get the death penalty. The scripture says in Deuteronomy that you do that, you get the death penalty. And the logic is, for this is like when a man finds another man in the open field and kills him and there is no one to rescue him. So they make a correlation between that kind of an assault and murder. So what's supposed to happen in the Old Testament economy is that there should have been a trial, and then once that dude got found guilty, he should have been executed. David did none of that. So Absalom sat on it for a year and took the law into his own hands and killed that dude. Now, this dude is asking me, did Absalom do the right thing by following the law and killing his brother? No, because he could have went to the prophet. Remember, when David violated the law, God sent Nathaniel the prophet to rebuke him, and David listened, right? So they had recourse. They could have went to the prophet, or they could have went to the high priest at the time who had influence on David to call David to justice. He did not do that. If he would have done that, if he would have tried to pull the levers of justice and it still didn't work, then I would be like, okay, cool. But you cannot have vigilante justice. You just cannot. And it's one thing if you go through all the levers where a lot of people don't understand, like the eye for eye, tooth for tooth law, the lex talionis law, is not designed to give you revenge. That's not the spirit of that law. The spirit of that law is to say, if somebody stubs your toe, you don't get to shoot him in the face. Because that's what was going on at the time, right? So the lex talionis was there to bring people in and not have them be as crazy and commit as much murder as what we would want to do. So what I would say is that because Absalom did not go through all the channels to fight for justice for his sister and took justice into his own hands, I'd still say that he was wrong for that in the meta sense, not in the in the immediate. I don't give a fuck, man. And to be honest with you, like, I didn't get to grow up with my sister, and it was probably for the best. But if somebody would have done that to our sister, like, yeah, people would have got hurt, bro. Like, and that's not being a gangster. That's just anybody with somebody that you love. If you've seen it, and I've seen the recovery from sexual assault. Newsflash, it doesn't. I'll say it this way. You know, my wife got we were playing basketball. She tore ACL. My wife is the most athletic woman I've ever met in my life. If she wanted to do UFC, she could have done UFC and would have went down as one of the GOATs. If she wanted to do soccer, like U.S. women's soccer, she'd have went down as one of the GOATs. My wife's the most athletic woman I've ever seen in my life. She tore her Achilles. Her Achilles was never the same. She recovered because she's an athlete, and she can get out there and play, and she's still the most athletic woman I've ever met in my life. And I come from a family of athletes. One of my aunts was a finalist in the Olympics until we had a domestic violence situation. I'm extremely athletic. The women in my family extremely athletic. My daughter's extremely athletic. My sister, she's strong. Sori is the most strongest woman I've met in my life. She can get back on the court, but she's never the same after that injury. Sexual assault is horrible for anybody involved, men or women. But there's something that happens to a woman. To survive that shit takes so much out of them. And if you're a man, you're going to say, that was when I was young and before I got my man body and blah, 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 blah. Nobody's going to do that to me anymore. But women don't get that luxury. And so I just cannot imagine a situation where something like that could happen to my sister and the dude that did it is just walking around, smiling around like nothing happened. Like, I think Absalom was wrong for doing that, but I put the blame almost squarely and totally on David's back. He was a horrible, horrible father. Horrible father. And again, this is one of the reasons I know the Bible is true. This guy is one of the most recognizable figures. Like, you talk about every year in basketball or football or the Super Bowl, David and Goliath, David and Goliath, David and Goliath. This is like one of the most foundational concepts and archetypes in the world, the warrior poet David. So influential in so many different ways. People don't even know that the archetype of the warrior poet, David embodied that in a way that there probably isn't any other archetype like that to that degree. Okay? And he fucked up. And he was a negligent father, and I think that negligence in this situation had a lot to do with his misogyny and his apathy toward female suffering, because he's presented as a misogynist in the Bible. And he's not complimented for it. As a matter of fact, his misogyny ends up being his downfall and the downfall of his family on a multitude of occasions. The Bible is completely ruthless to this man that it sets up initially as a hero. And that, like I said, it's one of the reasons I know the Bible's true. You're not going to find something like that about Muhammad in Islam. You're just not. My best friend, little sister, was assaulted. Cops said there wasn't enough evidence to press charges. Vigilantism can be tempting sometimes. Yeah, I mean, look, if something happened to any... I knew somebody one time, they were on a train with one of their female friends, and they had become, closer and closer. And, when you get close to people, people start telling you personal shit, and they talked about an assault that they endured when they were small. It was terrible. And, life goes on, blah, blah, blah. They're sitting on the train, and she goes, "That's the guy." He said, "What?" "That's him right there. That's him." So them dudes, it was 3 of them. They sit on that train, and they sit on that train all the way to uptown Manhattan and got off the train with that dude and followed him to his apartment. So when I look at the Absalom story, you cannot do that. You cannot have vigilante justice. You should have went through all the levels of authority. You can't take matters into your own hands. Those kids, they were young, and we all know this happened when you're 6. There's not going to be any justice for this person. We all know that. So, that's the point. You cannot take vigilante justice. You should always go to the authorities. And if you're in the authorities, you should take those accusations seriously, because there's no way in the world that women are going to walk around and allow themselves to get violated without some sort of recourse. They're going to find a way. They're going to find a way. They're going to find a way to square that circle. I don't care how oppressive the environment is, they're going to find a way. I've been in some really austere situations where you would think that women are whatever. I promise you, they're jujitsu in this situation. They've never taken this shit lying down. There's always a way to resist, believe you me. Vin, does the law of man supersede the law of God? No. But Christians a lot of the times want to put something in the arena of the law of God that isn't. like taxes, for example. Christian, taxation is theft, blah, 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 blah. Man, shut the hell up. All the Bible told you to do was pray for the king and pay your taxes. That's socialism, then. Man, be quiet. So yeah, the law of God always supersedes the law of man. But there are many times when those are not in conflict, but we want them to be because we don't like the policy. But for example, the law of man says that it's okay to kill a child if you don't want him, and the law of God says that all life is precious, and the weaker you are, the more the responsibility is on the society to protect you if you're weak, not discard you if you're weak. So that would be one example where the law of man comes into cross purposes with the law of God. What the task of history and philosophy really is what laws, and this is everybody has to contend with this, not just Christians. What laws or morals should be imposed and enforced on a society, and which set of laws and morals should be suggested but not imposed? See the difference there? There are some moral facts that we impose on people. So one moral fact would be sexual assault is wrong. It is always wrong, categorically wrong. And if you disagree with us, we will stop you. We will impose our non-sexual assault philosophy onto you. Right? That's an imposed morality. Another kind of morality in the sexual arena would be, it is unwise to sleep with 50 people a year because that's going to result in you siring a bunch of kids and most likely spreading all kinds of diseases and shit, thereby weakening our gene profile. So as a culture, we're gonna erect certain things in place to discourage that kind of a lifestyle. But we're not going to send you to prison for it. Does that make sense? So every philosophy of every social philosophy has to have those two categories of which morality do we impose and which morality do we strongly suggest. And that, my friend, is a very, 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 very tricky knot to untangle. Not wise. Shouldn't we spread thy seed? No, the goal is not to spread your seed. The Bible never says spread your seed. What it actually says is be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth and subdue it. Now here's the deal. You're to multiply, fill the earth and subdue the earth. You cannot subdue the earth with a bunch of children who are not fathered. When you get a bunch of fatherless children, you end up with Chicago. So if a person has a sexual moray that says, I'm going to have sex with as many people and impregnate as many people as possible, you're absolutely fulfilling the pass on the genes thing. But what you're not doing is you're not sustaining an actual society, because no society is sustainable that way. And that's the reason why the dudes that sleep with 50 women at a pop, Andrew Tates and things like that, are mercifully the anomaly in a given culture, not the rule, because nature would select that out of behavior because there's no way to maintain a society under the weight of all those fatherless children. I'm joking. I have one kid. I don't act horse shit. No. I'm not talking about you though. But I do think it's important because that's what I'm talking about, the complexity of morality, right? Because when we talk about our sexuality, there's some forms of our sexuality that we all agree we're going to impose on you, and we don't care if you have a different opinion or not. We don't care. We're just going to impose it on you. And then there are other aspects of sexual morality where probably the general consensus of society, it's not a good thing, not a wise thing, and should be highly discouraged, but we won't make it illegal, right? So I think one of those would be pornography. So to me, pornography should be illegal. That would be one where I would impose on the society, we're going to make something illegal. Does subdue the earth mean destroy its climate? When you bring innocent life into it, the climate will collapse completely by the time they're 45. They say God has a plan, free will is fake. I mean, Matthew, they were telling us that the world is going to end in 2012, 2017. I'm sorry, the Earth, the climate change people to me remind me of the doomsday prophecy people I grew up with. You know, like 88 reasons Jesus is going to turn in 1988. Then it was 89 reasons Jesus is going to return in 1989. I mean, literally, like, it's the same thing with these climate people. So, at some point, is there really going to be a wolf going after the sheep? I'm sure, but I'm not. I'm not worried about the climate crisis. What I will say though is that I'm not worried about it in the sense that I think it's going to ultimately be our undoing and destroy the world, because I do believe there's a God in heaven. But I do think that if your dad gives you a Lamborghini and says, "Hey, I'll be back," and your dad comes back and half the paint's gone and you smashed it in and there's cigarette burns all in the upholstery and shit, like, I'd be ashamed. And I'd say, you're a horrible, you know, that would be me being a terrible son. Look at this crazy gift your dad gave you and you absolutely fucking ruined it. He gave you this unearned gift. He just randomly hit you with a Lamborghini and this is what you did with it. That's kind of my posture relative to the earth. I have no hatred toward the Russian people, just their leadership that is using the long tradition of abuse towards its own people. I mean, okay. I mean, if you say so. I mean, I'm not God. I don't know your heart. The dichotomy between Russia and its people, okay. At the end of the day, you want those people to have weapons right to the hilt of their border. And their leader has begged us for over a decade. And we continue to poke the bear. I'm sorry. You're asking those people to do something that my leaders wouldn't do. So I don't know what you want for a solution. I don't know if you, Kai, if you think the solution is that the Russians are supposed to just deal with American aggression like everybody else. They're not supposed to stand up for themselves. I mean, I think they got a different agenda, man. And I don't have a problem with. I understand the logic, and you know, until your country is in that situation where the lone superpower is stacking up all these weapons at your border with hostile actors in that area, you want to ignore. See, here's the problem, Kai. Like, I respect the hell out of you, but there are just way too many glaring issues about this conflict that you don't recognize. And so because you don't recognize those things, there's no way you can really speak in any convincing way about it. Because I've talked to you about, like, we've talked about this for years, and there's never any alternate response. They tried to join NATO. We froze them out. We told them we weren't going to move an inch eastward. We've done that over and over again. We kept flirting over and over again with putting these people in NATO when we knew good and well what that meant to Russian people. These people at the beginning of the conflict were about to squash the beef themselves, and we went in there and stopped it from happening. These are all irrefutable facts. Now, you want me to look at all that information and say, yeah, man, those Russians did something horrible to the Finland people, so that's going to justify all this NATO aggression. I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry. It doesn't make any sense to me. And I'm sorry, there's nothing you can say to me relative to, like, oh, I don't hate the Russian people, I'm just mad at their government. Well, none of the sanctions and shit hurt Putin or anybody in that government. It hurt the Russian people. So, I don't know what you want me to say. I just think, like I said, that's between you and Allah. I just think that you have a state-sponsored hatred and fear of Russian people, and it's not my place to tell you that you don't have the right to feel that way. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to suspend my powers of reason. I have no reason to be, quote, against Ukraine. As you know, when they actually crossed the border and went in there, I was completely Slavic Ukraine, blah, 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 because I didn't know what the hell was going on. And then once I started looking at what was going on, it became very, very clear to me. Once again, my stuff was the Arab Spring. Like that was my, it was my life for, a while. But we're all over the place, reorienting maps, doing all types of crazy shit, Kai. So, I'm with you. All right, Dusty Baron, man, like I'm not gonna relitigate this, man. I'm not gonna relitigate this with everybody. Everybody knows my position on the Russia-Ukraine situation. So I'm just not gonna do it. We're the aggressor here. We're the ones that are fomenting this war. We're keeping it going. This is a proxy war. We're using the Ukrainians as human shield. We don't care about Finland. We don't care about none of these people. I'm okay. I feel pretty comfortable with John Hirschmeyer, Noam Chomsky, Boris Yeltsin. Literally every person who's ever looked at this has said that we are the number one instigators in this situation. That's not debatable. It's not excusable. These people sat down together and were about to squash the beef pretty early in this, and then we sent the dude Boris over there to go fuck it up. Dennis Kyrie was out there trying to get these people to negotiate peace, and the Ukrainians killed him. Miss me with all the other stuff, man. Miss me with that. Russia invaded Ukraine. You can't say the U.S. is the aggressor when Putin's a literal invader with soldiers in another country. No, Dusty Baron, no. I'm sorry. That world is simple for you. You can call in if you want. You can come in. We can have a conversation. I don't live in that world, man. I'm sorry. I don't know if you're familiar with the Cuban Missile Crisis, but those Russians were moving missiles over to Cuba. The Cubans had the right to do that, and we went out there and enforced the Monroe Doctrine. We almost went to World War III. So miss me with that, man. This is Americans. This is Americans sitting in a nice, cozy situation where nobody can ever fuck with them, or a country protected by America that nobody's ever going to fuck with them. And you don't know what it's like to have America as your enemy. So if you don't know what it's like to have America as your enemy, nothing you say has any resonance with me. Because you're speaking from a position of advantage and privilege. Are you denying that Ukraine is a sovereign nation? Of course I'm denying they're a sovereign nation. They're not a sovereign nation. They're a client state of the United States of America. They don't have any autonomy. You know how I know? Because when they autonomously decided to piece it up with Russia, we went in there and said, no, you will not. How can you say they're autonomous when Victoria Nuland went in there and hand-picked, hand-selected who their next leadership was going to be after the U.S.-inspired and U.S.-backed financially color revolution? Come on, man. Listen. I'm a YouTuber, okay? So what that means is I have extra time to look at shit. That's what that means. Here we go. Now look. Here we go. Hey, are you denying that Victoria Nuland is on the phone handpicking who the next leader of Ukraine was going to be? Yes or no? Are you denying U.S.'s influence in the color revolution? Yes or no? Good God. Look, like I said, call in. I'll give you a link right now. You can call in and you can explain all this to me, man. But unless you're in Russia, you're speaking from a position of privilege. Unless you're in Russia or Iraq and Afghanistan, you don't know what it's like to have the United States as your enemy. So if you're not in those situations, then you can't talk about it, man. Sorry. Listen to this guy. Are you denying that the past pro-Russian president was handpicked by the Kremlin? What are you talking about? Which one? The guy that they chased out after their illegal color revolution, and then promptly decided that Russian was no longer going to be part of the state language and the state heritage, thereby isolating more people in the Donbass, which they were systematically murdering in violation of the Minsk Accords. You're not talking to somebody who doesn't know what they're talking about, bro. Put up or shut up, Dusty. No, I'm not. I'm not justifying Russian imperialism. I'm being practical and I'm being consistent. When the Cubans came, when the Russians delivered missiles to Cuba, we almost started World War III, and we were right to do so. Because it would be irresponsible for our president to let hostile actors put powerful weapons within the reach of the United States landmass without an appropriate response. So, Dusty, again, unless you've ever faced a situation where the United States was the aggressor and your country was in the crosshairs, then nothing you say is going to have any resonance with me. Because it's completely hypocritical. Yeah, I mean, look, people can call in. It's fine. Everybody knows how I handle this thing. You're going to be able to talk more than I'll be able to talk. But if you want to come on here and explain to me why these Russians were just supposed to tolerate all this American aggression, if you want to explain to me what the hell Victoria Nuland was doing down there during the color revolution, I'd like to know. I'd like to know how you justify that. I talked about Absalom and vigilante justice, and I said he should have pulled all the levers of power to get what he wanted done. This man appealed to the UN. He appealed to America. There are multiple administrations. He kept bringing it up, and we kept giving that man the finger. Stop. Okay. All right. So, Dusty, you're no longer interacting, right? Because I asked you a series of questions, and you're just giving me talking points. You're not interacting. So, look, when you're ready to have a discussion, bro, we'll have a discussion. But, you just posting talking points up here and ignoring the glaring holes in your ideology is not helping anyone. Okay, I mean, you can say things are lost in translation, Kai. They might be lost in translation, but I'm serious. It's ultimately between you and God. To me, I don't think you're looking at this from an objective perspective. I do think that there's hate and discrimination in your heart against Russian people. Whether or not they earn that, I don't know. Like I said, that's between you and your creator, man. I'll talk to you about anything, but Okay. All right, my answers are weak. Oh, well, come on and show everybody then. I'll give you time to talk. You'll be able to talk more than I am. You can come in here and show everybody how my holes are, how many holes are in my logic. The problem is you're not answering any of them. That's the problem. So maybe you can come on here and we have a conversation, then everybody will be able to see how holy my arguments are. Okay. All right, Dusty. Thank you for sharing. I appreciate it. Look, I don't want any violence against any Ukrainians. I don't think it's moral that we use Ukrainians as human shield in our proxy war. So when the Ukrainians and the Russians were ready to settle this conflict and end the beef, we should have encouraged them to end it instead of making them continue it. That's what I think. This is what happens. This is when people are propagandized and we can't talk to each other anymore. He's got a set of talking points and that's it. And he's not gonna deviate from them, because if you deviate from them, then we're gonna have to deal with facts. See what I'm saying? So, it's all good, man. I'm not mad about it. There's people have different opinions. It's okay. It's okay. Kai, I don't think your English is limited. Your country has a bad past with Russia. They did horrible things to you. You don't like them, and you assume the worst of them, and you're going to ignore all the U.S. aggression and all the U.S. continuing in the fomentation of the war. You're going to ignore the fact that the Ukrainians themselves killed Dennis Kyriv. I've told you guys about this over and over again. Dusty, Google Dennis Kyriv. Dusty, if you would have called in, if you'd have got on and we would have had this discussion like adults, I would have had you answer me about Dennis Kyriv, who you probably don't know about. But Dennis Kyriv was on their side. He was a Ukrainian. and he was going to negotiate for peace with the Russians, and they executed him. The Ukrainians executed him in public in the town square because he was pushing for peace. This is very, very early in the conflict. I don't care if it's personal to you. It doesn't matter if it's personal to you, Dusty. It doesn't matter if it's personal to you. That's the problem with people in our generation, man. People think because they have an emotional connection to something, that validates your perspective. Dude, you got an emotional perspective because you're emotionally compromised, and it's making it so that you cannot see things logically. And the problem is, if me and you have a personal issue, then I'll care about it, right? Because me and you can solve that personal issue. But if you have a personal issue with a global situation, man, I don't give a fuck about your emotions, bro. Those are your emotions. I don't care about those. If you do not answer these questions of people that have serious issues with your side and your argument, if you just act like those questions don't exist, you're not going to convince anyone. And you saying it's personal just tells me, okay, that's the reason this guy's not dealing with any of your arguments, because that's in the context of logic, and this guy's completely emotional. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with you being emotional. But your emotions are clouding your logic, and that's the reason you can't answer basic questions about this conflict. I don't have a problem with Ukrainians defending their territory. Nobody has a problem with that. Yeah, I mean, look, yeah, and it's okay. It's okay, Dustin, to be in your feelings. I got a friend. I got a close friend. One of my best friends on the channel. He's in his feelings about Russia. It's okay to be in your feelings. I'm not going to invalidate that. Your feelings are valid for you. But when we're talking about foreign policy, I truly, truly don't give a fuck about your feelings, bro. I don't. I care about Russians who've been completely isolated in the world, or attempted to be isolated in the world. And I care about regular Ukrainian people who just want to go to work, who are now running around with a Kalashnikov about to be hamburger meat, so that we can continue to weaken Russia. That was our stated goal. Why would the Ukrainians negotiate with Russians after they murdered Ukrainians? Easy, Dusty, because Ukrainians murder each other. That's number one. Number two is, that's what countries do. Let me give you an example. The Japanese, for example. You know, we dropped 2 bombs on them in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. I think those were war crimes. But you know what the Japanese did? They went and negotiated with us after we killed all their folks. You know why? Because we told them, we have more guns than you. We have more power than you. We have got the bomb. You guys don't. If you guys don't surrender, we'll kill everyone. So they did the rational thing, and they surrendered. Because there was no third party to come in the way and say, you got to stay in this war. So at the very, very beginning of this war, anybody that knows anything about warfare knows the Ukrainians didn't stand a chance against the Russians. And very early in the war, they had negotiations for peace, and we stopped it. That's documentable fact. That's not something I'm making up. That's something that's accepted. Everybody knows it. That's what I'm talking about. And that's why your feelings are not pertinent here. They're not pertinent here. All right. No, I'm not above the emotional fray. I'm not above the emotional fray. What I'm saying is, I am not going to use my emotions to litigate this situation. And when I have a person that's being asked direct questions and continues to avoid them, I say, oh, that's a person whose emotions are dominating their logic. That's the difference. And I don't have a problem with your emotions dominating your logic. That's okay. It doesn't make you a bad person. It just makes you not someone we should listen to relative to foreign policy. You admitted it yourself. This is personal to you. Okay. That's okay. That's okay. All right, Dusty, I'm done talking to you, buddy. I'm done talking to you. You don't know who Dennis Kyrie is. You don't know any of these situations. You're spitting out talking points, and it's because you're emotionally connected to the situation. I validate your feelings. If the scenario you're telling us is true, I validate that. You have the right to feel that way, bro. For sure. Sure. Okay? But me personally, when we're talking about the lives of human beings, I am not going to say that I'm going to ignore all the aggression of my country and how that's resulted in the suffering of Ukrainian and Russian people. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. Because those people got emotions too. Russians got emotions too. Russian citizens got emotions too. The people who he blew up the Nord Stream 2, whose businesses, we don't know all kinds of, one of my suppliers is in Germany. You don't know all the fucking hell that we brought on those people and the plans and the businesses that they destroyed when they destroyed Nord Stream 2. Those people got emotions too. You are most likely an American sitting in a nice air-conditioned place somewhere, completely safe with no hostile actor on your border threatening your life. And even if there was a hostile actor threatening your life, you wouldn't care because you live in the only superpower on the planet that's been going around for the last 20 years, terrorizing everyone. And Applejack, if we're not the lone superpower on the planet, why is it that in every major conflict in the world, we're right smack dab in the middle of it? No, again, emotions are not the problem. Only sociopaths don't feel emotion in the face of a tragedy. The problem is when your emotions outweigh your logic. And one of the ways we know when a person's emotions are outweighing their logic is when they ignore basic questions or just deny facts. There is no negotiation. What are you talking about, Dennis Kyrie? What are you talking? You're just wrong. Every major news outlet has talked about this. So, I don't know what you're talking about. Okay, all right. Thank you, Dusty. You have been able to say your position, and that's your position. Cool, that's okay. It's America. We're allowed to disagree. I hope you respect the fact that I'm allowed to disagree with you. But come and welcome. You're welcome in our community. You and I have a disagreement. It's okay. Yeah, I mean, if it comes to a topic like this where it's an extremely visceral reaction, I understand people's emotional responses to stuff. Like, I get it. We can live in both worlds. We can be emotional and say, and then at the same time we can say, yeah, logically, here's some truths that we don't like, but, whatever. I mean, I don't know, Queen. I don't know, but look, I've had multiple conversations with the anti-Russian people. I mean, it's on Middle America. You guys can watch it. They usually get more time to speak than me, but it always ends the same way. So, what can you do? No, they can't. They can't. They cannot do that. Applejack, they can't do that. I mean, the Germans and the Russians had Nord Stream 2, right? What happened? What happened there? Who destroyed Nord Stream 2, Applejack? See what I'm saying? Dusty, have you not figured out that Vin is actually Putin's black brother? I'm actually Putin's black brother. You guys didn't know that because I'm a little light skinned. You know what I'm saying? Let me ask you this: do you think justice, Russia is justified to invade Ukraine and seize land? What does the term "justified" mean? So let me give you an example. We had a biblical story where somebody's sister got raped, and the people that were supposed to pull the levers of justice to make sure that that guy faced justice, they didn't do that. And so instead of going to those people and advocating for justice, he went and took matters into his own hands, and he killed the guy that raped his sister. Now, somebody asked me, was that the right thing to do ultimately? And I said, no, because he should have went to all the levers of power first to get justice done in a systematic way before taking the law into his hands. So he shouldn't have done it, but I completely understand why he did it. That's my answer. I don't know if you understand this or not, Dusty, but the Arab Spring is a concept that we initiated onto the Middle Eastern world, where you had multiple heads of state deposed, and you almost had Bashar al-Assad successfully deposed. We had with the help of NATO, by the way, we killed Muammar Gaddafi, a head of state. Okay? We killed him. So 2012 to 2020, okay? Spring started, I think, around 2010 with Nana and Iran. Okay? But here's my point. You're a world leader. You just saw a US-backed CIA operation to completely change the leadership structure in the Middle East. They successfully deposed the leader of Egypt and murdered the president, the dictating ruler, Muammar Gaddafi, on camera. Now you're Vladimir Putin, and we keep flirting with adding these people into NATO. And we are continuously sending advanced weapons right to his border. And you're telling me that there is no reason whatsoever to finally say, if you guys don't stop saber rattling, I'm going to do something to ensure the security of my country. On top of all the people that were getting systemically murdered in the Donbass region in violation of the Minsk Accords. So I just answered your question. Now please answer mine. Why is the United States constantly in the middle of all of these reorientation projects of the map? We're in the middle of it with the Arab Spring. We're in the middle of it with Hamas and Israel. And we're in the middle of it with Ukraine, Russia. Why do we keep showing up, Dusty? How come? Now you see that answer that I gave? It was a thoughtful answer. Dusty, what is your answer to that? Tell me what Mr. Putin should have done in light of all that aggression. Tell me what a responsible leader should have done in light of all that U.S. aggression. Okay. So Dusty, here it is. Listen, look at this. This is insane. Because the U.S. supports the aspirations of people. That's why we're sending all those weapons in there and threatening them. It's because we support the aspirations of people. All right. I answered your question. Are you going to answer mine, yes or no? Tell me what he should have done in light of all that threat. I asked you a question, Dusty. Tell me what Mr. Putin should have done. Dusty, tell me what he should have done in light of that aggression. I'm not going to say he's a child and a troll. He's admittedly an emotional person, and that's okay. Tell me what he should have done. Lambie says, do nothing. Just sit there and let the Americans fuck you up. I'm sorry. I don't think Putin's that kind of person. I don't think he's built like that. See, this is just American. This is just white American privilege, man. We really think we could just go throughout the world and just fuck with people and there's going to be no consequences. Everybody should just genuflect and bow to America. It's the same thing I saw with Rabbi Barkley. Oh, a Jewish blood is more important than everybody else's blood. You can't make an equivalency, blah, blah, blah. Oh, my God. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. As I said, I do not believe that I don't believe that Vladimir Putin's a good guy. But any American who has anything in judgment of this guy is just a raging hypocrite. If you've never stared down the barrel of American military prowess, then I'm sorry, I don't care. I don't care what you have to say. You're speaking from a position of complete and total privilege and ignorance. And you're absolutely, unfortunately, propagandized and brainwashed, and you cannot function rationally. And relative to this topic, and that's okay. But what you're saying doesn't make any sense. It doesn't jive with history. And it doesn't seem to me that you're actually familiar with the actual players in this situation. Like, no disrespect, but it seems to me that you got a lot of your understanding of what's going on here from Rachel Maddow. And I just think that there are other news sources in the world that you could probably look at that might have a different perspective on things other than what Rachel Maddow can give somebody. So that's how I feel about it. Vin, I'm willing to admit that I have a deep mistrust against Russia, and I'll give you that. And I have no illusions of our role. We're not more than a pawn on a game you big boys play on. Yeah, I mean, you're in a different situation. But again, none of you are answering that question, though. You see what I'm saying? Like the Barron guy, he just denied. Oh, there was no negotiation. There's no Dennis Kyrie. Just made him up. Dusty, who's Dennis Kyrie? Who was he? What was his role? What did he do? And how did he come to die? Just answer that one question for me. Who is Dennis Kyrie? Hey, we're not going to insult anybody here. We don't need to do any ad hominem. Okay? So let's just keep it clean, guys, okay? Let's just keep it clean. Yeah. That's so crazy to me. Why the deep mistrust of Russia and no deep mistrust of the U.S.? We killed 1 million Iraqis off of a false weapons of mass destruction lie. God. The irony of Americans. How can you trust Putin? It's naive to trust Putin. Blah, 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 blah. Americans is so weird, bro. What the fuck were we doing in Afghanistan from 2012 on down, dear listener? We killed bin Laden in 2012, right? And then we killed bin Laden in 2012? What were we still doing in Afghanistan then? Here we go. Why is this Dennis person more important than the thousands of Ukrainians that Putin forces have killed? Thank you. Exactly. That's it. You're completely and totally ignorant then of this situation. I would suggest you do a little bit more reading. God. It'd be like me saying, well, like, what about, the assassination of Abraham Lincoln? What does the killing of one person have to do with all these people that died in the Civil War? Oh, my God. You're such a hypocrite. You can't answer the question. You're right, man. You're right. Everybody can see right through me. I can't. You got me. You got me. You had no idea who Dennis Kyrie is or how he came to be killed. And your response is to say, what does he have to do with anything? Okay. All right. Why is Dennis more important than the Ukrainians who have died? Okay. This is the last thing I'm going to say to you, Dusty, because this is an exercise in futility. He is not more important than anybody. Unlike Michael Barclay and apparently you, I believe all blood is equally valuable. But not all blood is equally as consequential. If a person dies at 95 years old, we're going to shed a tear maybe, but we're going to say that's the cycle of life. We're not going to take any existential lessons from that other than people get old and die. However, if I'm in a situation where somebody kills a 9-year-old, that now has different implications. Dennis Kyriev was killed not because he was on the front lines fighting and died in a war. He was not killed by Russians for fighting Russia. He was killed by Ukrainians for trying to broker peace with the Russians and the Ukrainians. The reason that death is significant is because it tells us the posture of the people running the conflict on the Ukrainian and the American side. That's why that death is important, because it tells us that there is not only one bad guy, Vladimir Putin, operating here, that there are a bunch of bad guys operating here. And it also tells us that the well-being of the people of Ukraine is not the number one goal for many of those operators. So it is very important that we understand the death of Dennis Kyriev, because it shows us the posture of the folks in question. That's why that death is important. Now, Dusty, I hope you humble out here, because if you don't know who Dennis Kyriev was, then you obviously don't know the inner workings of what's been going on with Russia. It's clear to me you don't understand that your friends in the Azov battalion threatened Zelensky on live TV, defied his orders. Zelensky went down to the Donbass and said, stop killing them folks. And your friends in the Azov battalion laughed at him. And then they published in the newspaper that they would hang him in the town square if he ever betrayed them. Those are the people you're advocating for. Again, that is why Dennis Kyriev is important. So I've already answered your question, Dusty, and I told you that was the last question of yours I was going to answer. Because quite frankly, you're not read enough on this topic to even have a fruitful discussion on. Okay? You don't know the basic players in this situation, then I think you'd agree with me. If you read up on the topic, maybe you come back, we'll have another discussion when you're more prepared. You're not going to come online now and have the discussion, and that's okay. You're not prepared to have the discussion. You don't know the information. Get the information when you're ready. We'll come on. We'll have a talk. It'll be cool, man. We'll all be good. It'll be no problem. You don't know what I know. Okay, that's fine, man. You're right. You know more than me about it, bro. I mean, I barely graduated high school, so you probably know more than me about it. We don't even need to talk about it. You're right. Somebody say, check out the shelling of Manila for the reason for our mistrust. I mean, Kai, the invasion of Iraq was a lot more approximate than the shelling of Manila. Why are you trusting American talking points, but you don't trust the Russians? Wouldn't you say the Americans would be less trustworthy than the Russians? Dusty, it's completely untrue. Everybody has a right to defend themselves. If a crazy, deranged, sick, pedophilic rabbi is going after a black girl, she gets to defend herself, right? But that goes for everybody, though. The right of self-defense is for everybody. You know, one of the things they tell you when you're out in the range and you're taking a weapons course, they tell you if you pull that weapon, you better shoot that weapon. And then where I'm from, they tell you, you shoot that weapon, you better empty that clip. You know why? You don't pull guns on people and threaten people. That usually results in the death of a lot of people. Now, you want this man to stare down the barrel of a gun for a decade when we have demonstrated as a country we don't give a fuck about you being a national leader. We'll kill you on camera. I don't know if you know the way that Mr. Gaddafi died, because you didn't mention that in any of your responses. Please, in your next response, please recognize the fact that NATO had a hand in the murder of Muammar Gaddafi. So you're a world leader who has seen that the Americans do not give a fuck if you're a world leader. They will kill you on camera. Mr. Gaddafi was sexually assaulted before he was sent into the next world, by the way. So you're a world leader and you see that, and here come the Americans putting a gun to your face for the next decade. Now, Dusty, I need you to focus. You and I both agree that if Ukrainians get attacked, they have the right to defend themselves. Now let me ask you a question, and please answer honestly. Dusty, if you had a gun behind your back, and I went to your face and I pointed a gun at you, and you said, hey man, I'd really appreciate it if you took that gun out of my face. And I say, nah. I put the gun on you again, and you say, man, I'd really appreciate it if you took that gun out of my face. And I say, nah. Then my man comes up and shoots your friend dead in the head. Boom! Then I keep the gun in your face. Then I go out and shoot another guy. Boom! And I keep the gun in your face for 10 minutes. And finally you say, bruh, this is the last time I'm asking you, get the gun out of my face, please. And I say, no, what are you going to do about it? And then you turn around and start firing. Dusty, can you please answer me? Please answer me. You'll probably end up in prison. But will people understand why you shot me? Would it be right for my family to say that you're a horrible, nasty racist because you're most likely a Caucasian and you shot a black guy? Would it be right for them to do that? Here's another question. If the news only reported that you, White Dusty, shot me, Black Vinny, and did not tell everybody that I had a loaded weapon pointed at your face and all my friends were shooting people, you were seeing these people die. The news doesn't mention that. They just mention White Dusty shot Black Vin. Now, Dusty, I need you to explain to me if that would be fair or not. Would that be fair? And if the news only reported that White Dusty shoots Black Vinny, would that be honest reporting? Or would you say, I think that news agency has an agenda to try to make Dusty look like a really bad, racist, terrible guy and make Vin look like just this innocent victim? Yeah, I think that's what would happen. I think that's what would happen, Dusty. Vin of the Dead, I've invited our brother on multitude of occasions to come on and have the actual chat on video or audio, whatever he likes. For whatever reason, he has declined that invite. Dusty, I am asking what you would do in that situation. And I am asking how you would interpret somebody who only reported those facts and didn't give the context to make you look a certain way. That's what I'm asking you. That's the question I'm asking you. So can you answer that question directly, please? Because that's what I want to know. Because if you're sitting in America, you've never been in that situation. Now, I don't know about you. I'm from the hood. Okay? I didn't I didn't wave around a gun in nobody's face. And nobody waved around any guns in my face. It never even... See, the thing is, like, where I'm from, Applejack will tell you, it's not even going to get to that point. You're not going to get to the point where you're going to be able to put a gun on me in the first place. Me and you are having a real serious conflict. I'm looking at your hands, man. I ain't looking at you, bro. You're not going to do that with me. You ain't going to do that with none of my friends. See, guys, a lot of this has to do with your upbringing, man. If you didn't live in a place where people died, if you didn't live in a place where those actions have serious consequences, man, if the only time you've seen gun violence is on TV, you've never seen anybody bleed out, you've never seen anybody shot, then you can say shit like this. But we're in the real world. This is a real world. You put a gun to somebody's head, and they politely tell you to move it, and you don't, people gonna die, bro. That's what's gonna happen. Now, who's going to jail, who's not, blah, 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 that's a different question. That's a different question. Me saying, I understand why you shot that dude. I understand why you felt threatened. That doesn't change the fact that you still going to prison. You're still going to have to fight for your life in the courtroom. And by the way the media reports what happened absolutely has implications as to what's going to happen as to whether or not you're going to get a fair trial. And unfortunately, you are clearly a victim of U.S. media. Because you're going with the, oh, white guy just shot black guy out of nowhere for no reason story. When there's a little bit more details, a little bit inconvenient details there. Okay, Dusty, you're not answering my question. Would I be crazy if I shot you after you put a gun in my face for 10 minutes and I saw you going around shooting people, killing people on TV? Would I be crazy if I said, if you don't get that gun out of my face, we're going to have a problem in the next 30 seconds and you don't get the gun out of my face? You just say, what are you going to do about it? Would I be crazy to start letting off some shots? Would anybody think I'm crazy? But you know what? I don't know if you know U.S. law or not. If I did that, I would still get locked up and I would still go to jail and I would still have to fight for my life in court. So again, there's a difference between what's legal and what's practical. What's idealistic and what's realistic. And what I'm saying is, realistically, you put a gun in somebody's face, people are going to die. That's the reality I know. I don't know what reality you know. Dusty, answer my question. That's not how this works. You asked me a question, I answered it directly and thoughtfully. Please answer the direct question I had. Because to this moment, you still haven't answered it. Would I be crazy if I started shooting you? After 10 minutes of you threatening me with a gun and after me seeing you shoot everybody around me? Okay. I'm going to ask the question one more time. And if you don't answer the question directly, I promise you, I'm not going to block you, but you're going to be completely invisible to me. Because I've been very, very patient. For the last time, Dusty, it's an easy yes or no question. Would I be crazy to shoot? Okay, no, of course. Okay, so I would not be crazy if you were threatening me for 10 minutes, you're shooting everybody around. I would not be crazy. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay. That's okay. Thank you. Okay. So then now we have an understanding. Okay. All right. Okay. So we have an understanding. Look, it doesn't have to be a left-wing, right-wing thing. I know a lot of right-wing people who are mad at Russia, mad at Putin, blah, blah, blah. Our government, I mean, one of the clues about this whole situation is the media has a univocal understanding of the story over there. That should tell you right off the bat. Right off the bat, that should tell you. Okay, good. Okay, so then, okay, great. So what we need to do is get America to stop putting guns in everybody's faces. And look, if Putin still does a whole bunch of dumb shit to people when we get the gun out of his face, then you guys can go ahead and say he's this, he's that, he's blah, 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 blah. But as long as we got the gun in his face, I'm sorry, he's got an excuse. It's that simple. It's like my mom used to say, stop giving these people excuses. Don't give these people excuses to fuck with you. If Putin's that bad, then he'll be that bad. We don't need to instigate it. We don't need to get in the middle of people trying to broker peace deals and then have us go in there and fuck it up. Stop it. Kai, the reason we have not invaded you is because you guys are not significant for us to invade. You don't have any resources we want. That's the only reason you haven't been invaded. Yeah, I understand why Sweden would feel that way. I don't think Sweden is crazy. Sweden is trying to survive in the hellscape that we've just created over there. I don't think they're crazy at all. But I don't blame Russia for that. I blame America for that because that's what we wanted to happen. Now you're starting to figure it out. We instigated this because we want more NATO expansion because we control NATO and by which we control the world. It's the same reason, Dusty, we destroyed Nord Stream 2. Because now the Europeans are a complete client continent for us. Exxon and Chevron posted record sales. I literally predicted this in a rap. It was like one of my finest moments. I literally called out Exxon and Chevron, and then 3 months later, they came out with wouldn't you know it, the best year to date. So, that's where we are. Russia bears responsibility for their actions as well. They are a nation of children. No, they're a nation of men. That's the problem. They're a nation of men. And there's no man worth his salt. It doesn't matter if you got more guns than me. I don't care if your gang is bigger than me. There's no man worth his salt that's going to allow anybody to put a gun to his family. Now listen, I said a gun to my head. But these people are killing, these people have demonstrated they have no problem with killing civilians. These people put a gun to the head of your wife and your child. And you waited 10 minutes before you defended your wife and child? A person could argue that Mr. Putin waited too long. How are you going to let somebody point a gun to the head of your wife and child and you had a means of stopping it and you didn't do anything? Perspective changes. Perspective changes. Look, I don't think Vladimir Putin's a good guy. Anybody that's part of an intelligence apparatus of their country is not a good person. I think those are mutually exclusive. I think those are mutually exclusive ideas. That's what I think. Okay, man, you say that if you want. You say that if you want. But Putin was asking us for years to stop clogging up his border with our advanced weapons. We didn't do it. And so at some point, somebody finally in the world said, no, America, no. We're not going to cow to you. We're not going to bow to you. No. Stop fucking with us. We'll blow the whole thing up then. Okay. Americans need to take that. We need to take that lesson and we need to say, okay, maybe we need to pull back here. Maybe we need to pull back and stop being involved in everything. Once again, Dusty, every major conflict right now, we're smack dab in the middle of. The Israelis said they can't do what they're doing to the Palestinians without us. We gave $400 billion to the Azov battalion over there in Ukraine. For what? We're involved in everything. We architected the Arab Spring. ISIS, Jabhat al-Nusra, FSA, blah, blah, blah. I could go on and on and on and on and on. We were fighting Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan and fighting with Al-Qaeda in Libya. We were all over the fucking planet, dude. What happened is one of them finally said, no, I'm not going to sit here and let you do that to me, America. I'm not Gaddafi. You try to Gaddafi me, I'm going to blow the whole world up. Let's see it. At some point, didn't you support the FSA? Yeah. What happened to the FSA? What happened to the FSA? Yeah. Believe me, I supported the FSA. Believe me. What happened to them? Well, I don't care. I don't care if you call Russia an imperialist state, right? I don't care about that because I'm an American. And there's nothing that the Russians can do that can hold a candle to anything that my country. I've seen the shit firsthand. Firsthand. Dusty? Look, you and I are not disagreeing anymore. You said in the analogy that I was not crazy if I got out my gun and just waxed you for threatening me for 10 minutes on end after I asked you nicely for 10 minutes to stop fucking with, stop putting a gun in my face. So you and I are not even, we don't have any significant disagreements anymore. We're not disagreeing on anything anymore. You know, you and I are pretty, you know, that's it. The Spoda Party, the Right Sector, Azov, C-14, Aldar, 79th Air Assault, Brigade National Corps, Taiza, many more. Yeah, just fill in the blank. Fill in the blank. We're not even going to talk about how your man delegitimized all the Refusnik and Peacenik parties, which is a fascist thing to do. We're not going to talk about how he nationalized the media, which is a fascist thing to do. We're not going to talk about how they were setting up heavy surface-to-air stuff by schools and shit, so that little teachers had to go outside and confront the Ukrainian military, saying, why are you setting up these 50s over here when you know they're going to respond, and it's by a school? Or in Mariupol, where they set up their talk in a fucking hospital. You set up a talk in a hospital. Sorry, man. You're not talking to people that don't know what's going on here, bro. Thank you. Thank you. Love your content. Enough words. No choice. Yeah. Yeah. Look. Look. T Will. I get it, bro. I get it. I get it. I can't personally bring myself to vote for the man, but I get it, bro. Especially as a black man, I get it. Because at the end of the day, I didn't have Russia-Ukraine during Trump, and I didn't have Israel-Gaza during Trump. As I've said a million times, that man waited until he was absolutely sure that Mr. Biden was going to be the guy. And as soon as he got confirmation, he's like, yo, we out of this shit, nigga. Let's go. Michael Knowles did nothing to defend Candace. He said that Candace was his one of his best friends. He's a godfather to her child. He's sad to see her go. Ben Shapiro's his friend, and then he basically spoke with his tail between his legs. He seemed pretty embarrassed because obviously the way he handled the situation was very unmanly, especially considering Candace has displayed, I was going to say more testosterone, but the fact of the matter is, it seems to me that a woman in Candace's field, she had to draw on some other kind of strength that I'm not privy to. Vin, why are you streaming this late? Perk, I was supposed to go 10 minutes ago, and then somebody dragged me into a horrible discussion about Russia, Ukraine. To be honest with you, I thought we were beyond all this stuff. You know, I think everybody knows now that Russiagate was complete and total bullshit. I think people are probably too embarrassed to bring that up. I thought that's where we are with Russia Ukraine, but we're not there yet. But I think we're going to get there, inshallah. Putin got everything he wanted for Trump. No wonder he did nothing. Right. Dusty, I've got an entire video where I'll send you the link, where there was a Russian national that was cataloging all the Russophobic actions of the Trump administration. Again, you can feel how you want to feel about Mr. Trump, but Mr. Putin did not invade Ukraine until he was certain that Trump was gone and Biden was in. Feel how you do what you can with that. Do what you will with that. There are still people believing that Russiagate is real. Jeez, God almighty. I mean, oh my gosh. Well, actually, Dustin, I don't think Russophobia is funny. Actually, I don't think it's funny. If what happened to Russian people happened to Jewish people in the last 6 years, we would never hear the end of it. You had Keith Olbermann getting on TV talking about Russian scum. He never got called out for it. You had this woman, what's her face, horrible lady, the lion lady from MSNBC, Rachel Maddow, pumping all this every single time I did a video, I'd have a Russian national saying, man, thank you. You have no idea what those people have been through in this whole situation. Because just like the Ukrainian Americans, they're losing people too, but they're not able to mourn their dead. Rachel Maddow is still a Russiagate truther to this day. SubhanAllah. Unbelievable. Why do you keep talking about Russian people? Because I'm talking about Russophobia. There are no Ukrainians getting killed in America, but there are Russian people who are being marginalized and being told to hide their identity, and who are hiding their own identity, trying to mask accents and change last names. You wouldn't believe the type of shit people have told me they've had to do because of this bullshit that's been happening with this propaganda. See, this is another thing with people like you, man. You don't understand what it's like to be a marginalized person. You don't get it. I understand what it's like to be a marginalized person, though. I understand what it's like to have your image desecrated on TV and have people just completely shit talk you and don't even know you, mock your country, mock your people, and have no. You know what? Those people are humans too. And my folks aren't the only folks in the world that go through discrimination in America. This happened to Japanese people during World War II. We put them in internment camps. And now in like I said, imagine Jewish scum, imagine somebody saying all the shit about Jewish people and Israelis that was said about Russian people. So yeah, I'm definitely worried about that for Russian Americans for sure, because they're still Americans. They're still my folks. So the idea of America is we're supposed to be a melting pot. I want Stefani Lugansky, whatever his name is, I want him to be proud and be Russian, and I want him to speak with a thick Russian accent, and I want him to walk around with pride in his fucking country. That's what I want. I want to hear the Russian national anthem. I want to see the man respect his country and respect his forefathers and his ancestors. That's what I want from my Russian American friends. I don't want Russian Americans walking around with their head down. You better hold your fucking head high if you're Russian. Especially if you're walking around in America. We don't got shit to say to y'all about imperialism or nothing. No, I don't like that shit, Dusty. I don't like when anybody has to hide who they are because our media is decided to crucify the image of their people. That's not right. So that's why I keep bringing up Russians, because I'm trying to humanize people that my media has spent dehumanizing. Well, okay, so Mech, your grandmother named your mother after a Russian exchange student she was friends with as a young woman. So that explains why you've always been on the wrong side of this topic with me. Okay, you're a Mexican American, then it's stuck for a law. Then you shouldn't have asked me that question then, bro. That's why I'm talking about Russophobia. Because you laughed about it. You made it sound like it was a joke. But I'm the one getting the emails from the people telling me they're hiding their accent and they're considering changing their last names. I'm getting those emails. I got them. So it's funny to you. It's not funny to me, bro. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. I don't care about your Russian name. When I brought up Russophobia, you laughed, bro. And this shit is not funny to me. That's what I'm saying. I've been the recipient of phobias and isms my whole life in this country. And I don't like it when I see it happen to other people. I'm not cool with that. No, you used the term Russophobia and then you laughed. You said you said Russophobia, LOL. Right? And again, I don't have a problem with emotions. God gave me my emotions. What I'm saying is your emotions should not supersede your ability to reason. And so what I'm saying is Russophobia was a problem. It still is a problem. And you can laugh at it if you want, but I don't care. Because, yeah, see right there, you said LOL, Russophobic, funny. Look, right there. See? You said Russophobia is funny. It's right there, Dusty. I just realized that you have a Biden, Biden is your icon. Biden is your avatar, and you claim you're Mexican American, but you're out here with Biden as your avatar. All right. No, I made a comment about Russophobia, and then 30 seconds later, you posted Russophobia, ha ha ha. Okay? Now I'm starting to figure out why you won't call in and have the discussion. It was weird to see me seeing people go so hard. They were debating if we should even perform Russian ballets. Correct. Which is if you know anything about ballet, is like banning French people from cuisine. It's ridiculous. We had tennis players that because they wouldn't deny their Russian heritage, all of a sudden they were blacklisted. Man, y'all crazy. I mean, Dusty, you can say that, right? I wasn't laughing at the concept of Russophobia. You're getting emotional. You can say that, but everybody saw the text, bro. Everybody saw the text. It's right there. So, I mean, you could try to, rewrite history. But it's right there, man. So, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, we posted it for you. So, I mean, I don't know what I don't know what you tell. I don't know what to tell you, man. It's right there. You know what I'm saying? Like, there it is again. LOL, Russophobic, funny. All right. So, I mean, I don't understand. I don't understand how like denying it now is going to help you. Okay, I'm twisting your words. So you were not mocking the concept of Russophobia when you said LOL, Russophobia is funny? All right, I'm twisting your words. My bad. I don't want to twist your words. He didn't really mean that. And here's Dusty. Here's Dusty, Biden 2024, and you're claiming you're Mexican American. All right. I mean, all right. I mean, he hasn't been the nicest to Mexican people, but all right. Didn't he just use the word illegals in his State of the Union address about? Okay, all right. Maybe you can ask me what I meant by that. I mean, I don't need to ask you what you meant by it. You know, I mean, you said what you said. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you said what you said, bro. Like, I'm not. You know what I mean? Like, it's hard for me, like, cause like I don't know, like I don't know, like why that. Why would you choose that to try to deny when it's like in black and white, or black and red and white actually? Why would you try to deny that when it's like right there, we can all see it? All right, you're right. All right. My bad. Any Negro voting got Biden brainwashed. Wake up. Hey, I was John the Baptist in this bitch a couple years ago, bro. I was the only one saying, "What are y'all doing? This is the crime bill guy. This is the you ain't black guy." But Talon, what else can we do? This man went on your show to Charlemagne the God, who's supposed to be the archetype of the black male, like, you know. And he went on the show, said you ain't black, and Charlemagne didn't even check him on it. Charlemagne didn't even check him on it. Poor Mick. It was me, you, Applejack. It was me, you, and Applejack, and Mick, Talon. We were the we were the lone voices in the wilderness telling our people, "What are y'all niggas doing? What you niggas doing? Don't vote for this man. What y'all doing? He's putting niggas in jail and denying what y'all on." Come on, man. We were by ourselves in that bitch. We were by ourselves out in the wilderness. Them white folks wouldn't even give us a drink of water. Them Democrats over there. They wouldn't even give us a drink of water when we were out in the wilderness. Meck will tell you she was there. Meck will tell you she was there. She was there. It was me, Applejack. It was my brother Talon. We were out in the woods by ourselves. We had some white allies. We had Perkinos. Perkinos came and gave us some water a little bit in the wilderness there because the Democrats wouldn't give us nothing to drink. What was it? Hey, you don't want your kids living in a racial jungle. You don't want your lily white babies going around hanging out with them Negroes. Yeah. Hey, look, bruh. Look. Dusty, I'm not mad at you, bro. I appreciate your contributions. I appreciate your conviction, man. Like, I think that's great, man. You know what I'm saying? I think it's cool. You know, emotions are who we are as people. God gave us that, and a lot of times, like, emotions are important, man. They really, really are. Yeah, Vin. Biden released everyone in the feds who was locked up for simple weed charges, even though there was no one in there for that charge. Right. It's a real major overhaul of the. Isn't that what Kamala said? We need a major overhaul of what Kamala. Kamala is her name. We need a major overhaul of the justice system. Shout out to Kamala Harris. Shout out to Kamala Harris. And shout out to Dusty, man. Like I said, it's not easy to, you know, confront somebody. You know, it's my channel, blah, blah, blah. Obviously, you know, because of where we are, you know, he was taking a minority position. You got to respect it. You got to respect somebody who, you know, operates according to their convictions. Like, that doesn't mean I agree with it. That doesn't mean I say that it's their valid points. You know, I think that there's a lot of work that Homeboy has to do in order to be able to speak intelligently about this topic in a convincing way. But at the same time, the cojones of somebody to say, I'm going to disagree with the main guy on his show and I'm going to be in the minority, but I'm going to stick by my convictions. Whether or not you agree with him, you got to respect it. You got to respect it. Because that's a disappearing art form, because most of these conversations are just echo chamber situations where everybody agrees with everybody and everybody, you know, tries, you know, everybody toes the party line because they want to curry the favor of whoever. So anytime somebody disagrees and disagrees passionately in the face of all that contradiction, you got to respect it. That's just my feeling on it. Poor kids are just as bright as white kids. What was it? Mex said it was the racial jungle. I think for me and Applejack, it was you ain't black, and there's poor kids are just as bright as white kids. Yeah, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna leave you guys. I'm gonna do one of the most. This is gonna be the most self-serving Vin and Sorry moment ever, and I think let me see here. We're about to do the most self-serving Vin and Sorry thing ever. Y'all want to see my music video, my debut music video? You guys want to see my debut music video? All right, I'm gonna give you guys my debut music video. I think it's one of the greatest. I think it's one of the greatest songs ever written. We can watch it together. We can watch it together. I'm gonna dedicate it to my to the new brother I earned today. We earned our brotherhood, Dusty. You and me, we are now brothers for life, Dusty. What they say in the Matrix, you don't really know a person until you fought with them. And I believe in that. I believe that too much, actually. But yeah, man. Shout out to the big homie. This is for you, buddy. this song is for my big homie. It's for the big homie Dusty, y'all. It's for the big homie Dusty. Now, if I can get this thing to download, I think we'll be right there. And then you guys are gonna be blown away. You guys are gonna be blown away by the lyrical prowess. You're like, oh my God, yo, my brother's like a rock star. Oh my God, this dude is the truth. This dude is the truth. I'm fucking with y'all. Y'all gonna laugh at me. You gonna laugh at me. You gonna laugh at me. Hold on, let me get this converter here. Boom, copy and paste. Boom, I accept the cookies. I accept them. Oh, man, 4th of July is the name of the song. Would you say you are absurd? Somebody's absurd? You talking about me? Yeah, I know I'm absurd. It's okay. It's okay. I'm all right being absurd. All right, this thing is saying 30 seconds. All right, guys, here we go. The debut of 4th of July. 4th of July. Here we go. Here we go. Here's the video. Yeah. Shout out to Joe Biden. Look at the world. Do you feel more secure than you did before? I know Trump was the problem, right? But where are these big freaking changes? I know Biden is the solution, but where are these big freaking changes? Talk to me, Dusty. Where are the changes, Dusty? But where are these big freaking changes? Where are the changes? Right. We ain't gonna listen to none of that propaganda no more. Shout out to Dusty. We are the change. Spitting facts. Hell yeah. I got a. What's going on? Somebody called out my man Perkinos. Perkinos is like literally the most genuine person on this forum. What you mean, bro? Hey, Mick, I got another one. Out, but I wrote it after a police shooting. So I don't know. I'm gonna send it to like a chosen few group of people to see if it's like responsible to even put out. But yeah. Wow, I was really blown away by the lyrical prowess, just like you said. I was not paid to say this. There you go. Ha ha! Checks in the mail, Perk. Hey, I appreciate it, Jet. I appreciate it. Actually, all the credit really goes to where's she at? Helena. She did all my production. The Palestine rap is the Palestine song is a metal song actually. I was too emotional about the Palestine thing to just rap about it, so I had to. That one's on this, and I think we're gonna hook up with our producer in a couple days. That one's gonna be early release for our patrons. Yeah, hell yeah. For sure. Shout out to Dusty, man. Anybody that's willing to do the debate, man, is good in my book. Hell yeah. On such a messed up greed. I know. We made that shit look so legit. And it's gonna be good. Yeah, hell yeah. Call in. But yeah, we've got a metal song that I'm really, really excited about. We got a producer here. He's actually here right now. I'm not going to say his name, but we got a really badass producer. We got a couple really, really good ideas we're pretty excited about. And there's a band that they're in the Village. They got picked up to do a European tour. And I've set a goal to be on tour with them next year. So we've got a lot of aggressive timelines that we're trying to get straight. So yeah. But shout out to Hell for that. She's my video producer. We might have another release coming out pretty soon here. It's gonna be good. Yeah, guys, I think we're gonna be doing a lot more of these kind of variety kind of conversations because there's a lot of times that I'm bored and there's like a lot of dead space. So yeah, I saw Sabby Sabs. If you guys are following Sabby Sabs, she had like live action. There was I forgot what the town was in Russia. There was rockets going off, and then there was a town in Ukraine with another set of rockets going off. Like, at the end of the day, man, we all know that Zelensky and Putin aren't going to suffer the brunt of the bad news. It's going to be the people on the ground. We know that. So no matter how you feel about Zelensky or Putin, the people that they represent do deserve our prayers, right? So I think I think that's important to remember. All right, guys, I'm going to get out of here. I gave you guys 3 hours and 45 minutes. Like I said, I'm planning on being pretty aggressive about the recording schedule. So it's going to get to the point where you guys get sick and tired of me for sure, but here we go. Yeah, that's crazy. You got booted from that group chat, bro. That's absolutely crazy. So thank you, Chicken Beak. That's a really high bar. I mean, Sabby's been consistent. The other thing about Sabby, like, she's out on the street. Like, she's out there. Like, literally, she's out there. That's why in that video, like, at the end, I shouted her out. Because, like, she's really, 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 like, pounding the street, doing the work. You know, a lot of us are, I don't want to say we're play acting. Because, like, what you say is important. But when somebody's actually on the street doing the shit and has a job, because she hasn't, like, gone completely, you know, independent yet. People think that YouTube, like, if you get a certain thing, like, you're automatically, it's not like that. We're very blessed because we had a specific kind of business model. But for her to have all those plates spinning around at the same time, and she's still out there actually doing the work, she's incredible. She's incredible. I appreciate that, Mech. I might include that in the next season of Middle America. That statement, like, intelligence and compassion, I think is it's important. Some days I'm good at it. Other days I'm more passion than reason. You know, it just depends. You're always trying to get better. All right. All right. Much love to all you beautiful people. We got to get out of here. But if you have my number, man, text me stories, text me messages. I'm really, really going to try to really step up the op tempo for recording. Also, we're going to do another tour for the Poor Thing in Massillon, Ohio. We really got to coordinate with that a little bit better. That's another thing that we need to keep, like, having conversations about. Much love to everybody, as Kamikaze says. Much love to all you beautiful people. Christos Anesti, Christ is risen. It's Easter. Happy Easter, everybody. Happy Easter, everyone. Hopefully, you know, one of these days, this is all going to be over, man. I remember walking my I'll never forget walking my son into that room. And now he's off in Alaska. Pursuing his dreams, doing what he believes in. So it's life. Life is short. It's sweet. It sucks, and it's the best thing in the world. Don't take it for granted, dear listener. Those people that you got around you, they're not going to be around you forever, and it's not always tragic. You know, I was explaining to one of the kids, like, your brother had to go. He's 18 years old, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's had to be done. You can't, so don't take those things for granted, man. You know, you guys know I got like 16,000 kids and shit, but I don't got one of them with me, but you know, like I said, man, like that's the way of the world. That's how it should be. And he's doing what he loves, and he's you know, he's the poster boy for the homeschooling stuff, right? You know, went out there and honestly, the kid, honestly, he just woke up and all right, I'm gonna get my get the diploma thing now. So he just went in there and did it. I was like, yeah, he just said, you know, through homeschooled him. He just went in there, did it, killed everything, and now he got recruited by these operatives in for a certain political organization, you know. So he's got pictures with some pretty interesting people. Like he's doing the thing, man. He's doing the thing. So it's a success story number one for homeschooling, I guess. But yeah. Anyway, isn't Easter next week? I don't think so. Wait, is it? Is it next week? Yes, it's Sunday, March 31st. Okay. That's tomorrow. Oh, so it's next week. All right, good. So I was like, yo, like I'm the worst Christian in the world because I didn't have a very good Friday. I thought it was Good Friday last Friday. I was like, man, I'm the worst Christian ever. Okay, I feel a little bit better now. All right. It's Palm Sunday though. Okay, Ozzy, you're right. It's Palm Sunday. Yo, we have to like hold this moment in like hell. Me and you are going to be talking about this moment in 10,000 years. This is going to be the time when hell rightly corrected Vin on theology. No, Perk didn't confuse you. I'm the one that confused you because I'm the one that was like wishing people happy Easter and shit because I thought tomorrow this morning was going to be Easter. Oh, man. Evangelicals with no calendar. It's so true, bro. It's so true. I'm completely an evangelical dude. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm really considering moving to the Ozarks to get next to Perk. In an alternate universe, Perk is like he's like a traveling priest with me. Like, literally. And he just travels with me, and he's my priest. And when I do something wrong or fuck somebody up, he's like, hey, you can't do that. And like, you know, like, shout out to Perk. He's literally like priest in my phone. Like literally in my phone, his name is Priest, and there's his icon is you know, a little thingamajiggy. That's what he's been in my life. Shout out to Perk. I only know because of the Easter shopping. I don't care. Like you got me. I think it's like one of the. That's amazing. Unbelievable. I don't know what you did to Vin of the Dead, but you must have hurt his feelings, bro. Because he's like, I'm not joking. I'm just saying, like, I don't know who Vin of the Dead is, but I'm sure he's a good dude. But anyway, guys, all right. So Easter is next week. Mashallah. Easter's next week. Good. All right, good. So I'm not as we're almost there then. We're almost there. All right, much love to you beautiful people. I think I'm gonna start studying now because I got a video game that I need to somebody in UFC bit somebody? Holy shit. UFC releases fighter after DQ for biting opponent. Allahu Akbar. Igo Severino released by UFC for biting opponent in debut. Dude, it's your first fight and you're biting dudes already? See. See. That's not good, bro. All right. Much love to you, beautiful people. I got to get out of here. Good night, as Birkenaut says. And let us know what to do on these. Yeah, like I'm going to be watching these tutorials. I'm trying to figure this shit out, bro. Because I don't want to go up there and suck, man. Like, I want to go out there and dominate. You know what I'm saying? That's how I feel about it. All right. Much love to all you beautiful people. Kai, you're in it. Perk, stay by your phone. I'm trying to recruit you into our cult, man. All right? All right. Much love to all you beautiful people. Shout out to Hell. Shout out to Kai. Shout out to Perk. Shout out to President Biden. Shout out to Mech, my sister. Shout out to Applejack. Shout out to Ozzy. Shout out to all you beautiful people. Who else? Christ will rise again in a week. That was the timing. The timing was perfect. She said Christ will rise again in a week. Perfect timing. That's one of those, like, you have to have the context and shit. Otherwise, people are like, what the hell is she talking about? All right. All you beautiful people, love you all. Mac, Applejack, all of y'all. I'm out of here. Vin out. Take care of yourselves. Get a good nap.